If you like the story, you can support the author on Patreon. Link is in the description.
Chapter 51. Chapter 51, Magic Tricks. Carpe diem. Seize the day, boys. Make your lives extraordinary. John Keating, Dead Poets Society. Late at night, at Wayne Manor. In the entertainment room, Dick slowly stretched his hand and turned it front and back to reveal the palm and the back of the palm in turn. There was nothing in his hand. Then, with a gentle shake of his hand, a black ace of spades appeared instantly. But that's not all, he continued to lift his hand and suddenly flicked it down, and another red ace of hearts appeared. Dick quickly repeated this step twice, and a club ace and a diamond ace also appeared in his hand. He gathered the 4 aces together in both hands and held them tightly. After a slight pause for a second or two, he suddenly spread his hands to the sides, and the 4 playing cards that should have been there disappeared. It turned into a bright red rose. I did it. What do you think? After doing all of this magic trick, Dick's face lit up with excitement, and he looked at Dean not far in front of him. Clap! 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 Dean clapped his hands calmly and said, "Not bad. An average professional magician would find it difficult to spot your flaws, let alone a beginner." Dick twitched at the corner of his mouth, understanding that Dean meant that his flaws were obvious to someone with a higher level of magic skills. After dinner, Dean began teaching Dick magic, and the two of them had been practicing in the entertainment room at Wayne Manor until now. What Dick just performed was the magic trick that Dean had taught him earlier. "Let's stop here for today, Dick. I must say your progress has exceeded my expectations. If you can maintain the same level of proficiency you just showed, I believe you are already skilled enough to impress the girls at the school dance." Dean rubbed his chin, his gaze focused as he looked at Dick. "Just 2 hours ago, your technique was so rough that anyone with eyes could see the flaws. Now, you are already as good as many amateur magicians. It's impossible for an ordinary person to have your level of finger agility and body coordination. Be honest with me, did you practice magic before?" Hearing this, Dick was taken aback. He wasn't exactly sure how magicians' skills were ranked, and he had intentionally slowed down his progress. He really thought that this kind of magic was too hard, but he didn't expect himself to improve so quickly. "Barbara hasn't sent any information yet. If Dean is really the Phantom Thief, with his intelligence, he would easily guess that I'm suspicious of his identity. I need to come up with a reasonable explanation." Dick's mind raced, and he instantly came up with a perfect explanation. "You know, Dean, I used to live in a circus. My parents were both aerial acrobats, and for a circus performer, having a flexible body is important. So, naturally, my hands are more agile than most others." When he mentioned his parents, Dick's eyes darkened for a moment, but he quickly put on a calm smile and said, "I never learned magic before, so I don't know much about many of its principles." "I see." Dean replied calmly, nodding his head without any change in expression. This made Dick's heart skip a beat, and he looked at Dean with the same expression. Fortunately, Dean quickly turned away, walked out of the house with his back to Dick, and said goodbye. "It's getting late now, so I'll go home." "Wait." Seeing Dean about to leave, Dick quickly stopped him. Barbara still hadn't sent a signal. Perhaps she was still searching for Dean's house. If Dean happened to run into Barbara when he went home, it would be a big problem. "Do you need anything else?" Dick's shout startled Dean, who turned around and asked. "It's already very late, Mr. Sutton. As you can see, Wayne Manor is far from the city. If you go back now, it will be very late by the time you get home. It's too dangerous to walk on the streets of Gotham at night." Suddenly, Alfred's voice came from outside the room. Dean turned his head and saw Alfred walking towards them from the corridor, holding a tray with 2 cups of tea. "I suggest you stay for the night. We have plenty of empty guest rooms here, and you can choose one you like. Tomorrow morning, I will take you and Master Richard to school." As Alfred spoke, he handed Dean a cup of tea. "This is original Italian tea, please enjoy." "You know what? I want to say the same as Alfred." "Dean, why don't you stay here tonight?" Dick rushed over and picked up the other cup of tea, taking a sip before continuing. "It seems that Batgirl hasn't left my house yet, or maybe she has already left but hasn't given any message to Dick." Dean thought to himself. He pretended to hesitate for a while, then suddenly seemed to have made up his mind and decided to stay the night. "All right, I'll spend the night at Wayne Manor. Then I won't have to worry about running out of material for my bragging in the future." Dean joked with Dick. "Then let me show you the way. Please follow me, Mr. Sutton." Wayne Manor is really huge. If it weren't for Alfred guiding Dean, he might have gotten lost while walking inside for the first time. After arriving at the guest room, Dean said good night to Alfred, took a quick shower, and went to sleep like nothing had happened, not caring at all about the Batgirl at home. The next day, Alfred drove Dean and Dick back to school, and they resumed their normal campus lives. After finishing classes for the day, Dean planned to go home as usual. The reason was that Dick was learning magic very fast, so there was no need to go to Wayne Manor every day. They agreed that he would visit every few days. Since Dick's intention was never to learn magic, the two naturally reached an agreement. When he arrived home, Dean didn't rush into the house. Instead, he first observed whether there were any additional cameras around the house and made sure no one was following him before taking out the key to open the door. After entering the house, he did the same thing, checking for any hidden cameras or bug devices. Dean went to the center of the house and took out a small black device about the size of a solid-state drive from somewhere. Without hesitation, he pressed the button on top. It was the mini surveillance system jammer he had bought in the system store. It could automatically scan for surveillance cameras within a 15-meter radius and make them loop or replay the footage from 1 minute ago. Additionally, there isn't any technology on Earth today that can detect this interference. As soon as Dean activated the jammer, the green indicator light turned on in less than a second. This meant that the jammer was working properly and had detected any surveillance cameras. At the same time, a red dot appeared on the radar screen of the jammer. "At least they have some respect and only put up one camera. They didn't go so far as to completely violate my privacy," Dean said, holding the jammer, and followed the radar direction to find the location of the camera. However, when he found the hidden spot of the camera, he was shocked to discover that it was. Chapter 52, The Double Deception. We have no choice but to accept the one and only life we're given, no matter how cruel and heartless it might be. Yuri Nakamura, Angel Beats. At the door of the bedroom, Dean stood thoughtfully in front of the closed door. The radar of the small surveillance system jammer showed that there was a surveillance camera hidden in his bedroom. Why would it be in the bedroom? Although the bedroom is the most private place for anyone, Dean doesn't spend much time there except for sleeping. He usually stays in places like the study room, practice room, basement, living room, and even the kitchen. After all, the Sutton Manor has plenty of rooms, so Dean doesn't need to use his bedroom for multiple purposes like ordinary homes do. He wants to use every square inch of space in this manner. Always hanging around with Dick, a super rich kid, made me almost forget that I'm also considered a rich person in the eyes of ordinary people. Since Batgirl had installed a camera in his room, it meant she still didn't fully trust him and had some doubts. But why choose to monitor the bedroom? Wouldn't the study or basement be more perfect surveillance spots? For a moment, Dean felt deeply puzzled. For now, he didn't plan on opening the door and entering the bedroom because he wasn't sure if Batgirl was watching the surveillance footage at the moment. He also had to think about how to deal with the camera. It's not a good idea to break it directly, at least not now. Although Dean was currently alone, he couldn't risk exposing his identity as the Phantom Thief. Let's check the basement first. With Batgirl's abilities, it should be easy to find that secret room. Caution was key. Even though he could roughly confirm that there was only one camera in the house, Dean still kept the jammer device in his hand. Just in case, it wouldn't be fun if there were hidden cameras in some corners outside the 15-meter radius. Arriving at the basement, Dean easily finds the hidden switch on the wall and presses it. The secret room opens. Impressive. She managed to clean up all the footprints on the floor. The dust on the ground looks as if no one has ever entered here. As Dean enters the secret room, a light shines in front of his eyes as he sees the thick layer of dust covering every inch of the floor. When Batgirl entered, she couldn't have avoided leaving footprints in the dust. She must have done some specialized cleaning afterwards. However, what she doesn't know is that this pile of dust in the secret room has a special source. It is not a natural collection of dust because Dean opens this secret room almost every day, so it is basically impossible for it to gather dust. So, where did this dust come from? It was quite simple. Dean had bought it through the system store. With just a few points, he could buy dust to cover the entire secret room, creating the illusion that no one had entered for a long time. And the dust created by the system also has a unique function. Dean can easily tell where the dust has been stepped on. He believes that there are not many people in this world who can think that this ordinary dust actually hides secrets. It's not just the dust, even these old so-called antiques in this secret room are actually fake items he bought in the system. The prices are very cheap, with a total of no more than 50 amazement points. Only the photograph was real. When Dean earned his first bunch of amazement points, he started setting up these items. Dean knew that whether it was Robin or Batgirl, they were all good people. Good people care about others. If they see the antique of the Sutton family in the secret room and think about Dean's tragic experience of losing his parents at a young age, they will naturally feel sympathy. At the same time, the dust on the floor also proves that Dean hasn't been in the secret room for a long time. This means that the Phantom Thief has nothing to do with this secret room. They might even feel guilty for suspecting Dean. As for the possibility of someone doubting Dean's identity, who is not a superhero but a supervillain lacking empathy, Dean thinks that if such a situation really happens, his concern wouldn't be about how to hide his identity, but how to ensure that his house doesn't suddenly explode. In the secret room, Dean walked casually towards a corner where a portrait of the Sutton family hung. Dean squatted down and looked at the bottom right corner of the frame where it was attached to the wall, about 5 centimeters from the bottom to the top. A thin black hair strand was placed between the frame and the wall. Seeing that the hair that had been put up earlier was still there, Dean smiled. Sure enough, just as I thought, Batgirl didn't see through the real behind the illusion. I thought she would erase her doubts when she saw the secret room, but she ended up installing surveillance in the house. She's really something. Dean reached out, lifted the frame back, and tilted it 30 degrees to the left. With a soft click, the portrait remained fixed to the wall at that angle. The secret room itself doesn't seem to have changed. But on the other side, the wall in the basement that leads to the secret room slowly opens up on the inside, showing the door to a second secret room. This second secret room is the operation base of the Phantom Thief. With less than a week left until March 10th, I haven't had time to explore the place because of Dick and Barbara. I've been too busy. After reading, I can't afford to take it easy anymore. After bringing all of Phantom Thief's usual equipment, Dean closes both secret rooms and leaves the house quietly. It's 8:30 in the evening now, and there's still surveillance in the bedroom. If I go to sleep too early or too late every day, it will look suspicious. I'm running out of time, I need to act quickly. With this in mind, Dean rushes to the Natural History Museum as fast as possible. Nearly 3 hours later. In an old-fashioned place in the Old Town area of Gotham, on the second-floor bedroom. Barbara is always looking at her computer screen as she sits in her chair. She wasn't watching a movie or playing a game. She's watching a bedroom. That's right, Barbara is watching the live surveillance feed from Dean's bedroom. And she has been watching for more than an hour and a half. Barbara, what are you doing? How long will you continue with this meaningless task? As she continues to watch, Barbara can't bear it anymore and keeps questioning herself in her mind. Why did I install surveillance in Dean's house? He clearly has no reason to be the phantom thief, and I haven't found any evidence in his house. Just because he happened to read a book about Roman religion, I suspect him of being a phantom? Oh my God, I must have been infected by Batman. Just as Barbara is about to shut down her computer and go on a night patrol to calm down, Dean enters the bedroom. Wow! Barbara's eyes lit up, unable to contain her excitement. Chapter 53, March 10th. If nobody cares to accept you and wants you in this world, accept yourself and you will see that you don't need them and their selfish ideas. Alibaba Saluja, Magi. A week later. March 10th. For the Gotham Natural History Museum, this was a special day. Because at midnight on this day, the phantom thief was going to come and steal the priceless dragon's egg ruby necklace. On this day, almost all of Gotham's media sent reporters and photographers to the Natural History Museum. As long as they could get a close-up shot of Phantom Thief, this would increase their newspaper sales by 10 times or more. Since Vicky Vale's exclusive news about Phantom Thief, the Gotham Gazette has made a lot of money, and other media have been envious. On the surface, the reporters put on a friendly smile, but secretly they were getting ready to compete with each other. Everyone wanted to capture the perfect shot, and every reporter on the scene was a competitor. They might even deliberately block each other's cameras. Moreover, if they could get an exclusive interview with Phantom Thief, it would be an amazing opportunity for fame. No reporter wanted to give up this chance to someone else. The GCPD team also had a solemn aura and was firm in their eyes. They had entered the museum earlier than everyone else to replace the night guards. Since Barbara had solved the notice letter, there weren't many police officers guarding the museum between March 1st and 10th, probably around 50. But today, Jim brought more than 400 guards and set up a tight security perimeter around the Necklace and Jungle exhibition halls, waiting for Phantom Thief to appear. In order to ensure that Phantom Thief could be successfully captured this time, Jim did not hesitate to call in more than a dozen special police officers from the SWAT unit. This unit force was one of the strongest armed forces in Gotham City and was usually only used to deal with especially difficult supervillains. It can be seen from this that Jim is determined to catch Phantom Thief as soon as possible. In addition to reporters and the police, the people of Gotham were also actively involved. They were very interested in this high-profile thief, especially after the pink fantasy money laundering incident was exposed. For most citizens of Gotham, the fake diamond was not important at all because they couldn't afford it anyway. But the nature of money laundering was different because black money could come from drug trafficking, the organ black market, arms smuggling, or even human trafficking. As far as Gotham's environment is concerned, it is closely related to the lower class people, and it seriously endangers their personal safety. Although Phantom Thief was a thief, he became an important figure in exposing the money laundering chain. How could such a big difference not make people curious? Especially the young people in the new era of Gotham. They believed that the Phantom Thief was not just a simple criminal but even a hero, exposing the darkness of society in his own way and helping those who truly needed help. Although, from a legal perspective, Phantom Thief was an actual criminal, not everyone believes that the laws are always correct. In short, no matter how Phantom Thief is described, it will not change the fact that thousands of ordinary citizens gather at the museum at this moment just to see Phantom Thief with their own eyes. Inside the museum's artifact exhibition hall, the dragon's egg ruby necklace is covered by a transparent glass case and placed in the center of the exhibition hall. A 3-meter radius around it is sealed off, making it impossible for anyone to approach. The glass case that protects the necklace is made with the most advanced bulletproof glass technology in the world. It is strong like titanium alloys and as hard as chromium. However, it was not produced by Wayne Enterprises. The company that manufactured this glass case was LexCorp. The necklace's perimeter was only 1 meter wide before today, but on the day Phantom Thief revealed his plans, it increased to 3 meters. Outside the sealed-off area, a dozen fully armed SWAT officers stood shoulder to shoulder in a tight circle, leaving no gaps. Even the ceiling above had no ventilation openings. Commissioner Gordon gave them strict orders that they could not leave without his personal command, no matter what happened, even if there was a power outage or a fire. They have to make sure that at least 2 people are with each other at all times, even when going to the bathroom. They are not allowed to trust any orders received through the walkie-talkie. They can only follow his instructions if they make a good signal in front of him and confirm that it is not Jim pretending to be the Phantom Thief. It is very important to make sure that no one can touch the necklace throughout the entire night. I just don't believe that Phantom Thief can steal the necklace with this kind of setup. Harvey surveys the barricade around him with a sense of satisfaction. He would have to fight over a dozen heavily armed special forces if he wanted to get close to the necklace. Who can do this kind of thing except Batman? Yes, Harvey suggested to Commissioner Gordon this close protection strategy for the necklace. At first, Jim felt that this was a bit too extreme and that the success rate was not high. It was purely a fight for time with Phantom Thief. But after thinking about it, the Phantom Thief is often played by his own rules, and using this direct and brute force might actually work. After all, no matter what tricks the Phantom Thief tried, he would ultimately come to steal the necklace. So Jim agreed with Harvey's proposal and even assigned the GCPD's multiple elite SWAT officers to provide close protection for the necklace. Do you really think this plan will work? At the same time, Dick looked at Harvey and the surrounding circle from the corner of the exhibition hall and whispered with one hand on the earphone. In the jungle exhibition hall, Barbara moved to a quieter spot and put her earpiece in to respond. You mean Harvey's plan to form a circle around the necklace? I can only say that if it were me, I would never use such a stupid plan. Why don't you tell your dad then? I remember you're currently acting as the temporary consultant for GCPD in this case, right? Dick asked. Oh, please, do you really think my dad would listen to me? And I didn't say the plan was bad. I just think it's too dumb. But who knows, it might actually work. Barbara retorted. All right then, can you tell me what you've seen while monitoring Dean's house for all these days? Nothing. 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 Really? Dick asked suspiciously. If you haven't found anything suspicious by now, doesn't that mean Dean is innocent? Why don't you go and get the surveillance cameras? Barbara hesitated and showed a conflicted expression on her face before finally saying, It's the last day. Today is the last day. After Phantom Thief's incident is over, I'll go and get the cameras. Chapter 54, Chapter 54, Conflict. Why do I and everyone I love pick people who treat us like we're nothing? Sam, the perks of being a wallflower. Dick, I really don't understand why you've become so emotional now. I know you believe that Dean is not Phantom Thief, and I don't want Phantom Thief to be your friend either, but believing doesn't prove Dean's innocence. Barbara's serious words reached Dick's ears. Today is the last day, and the best way to prove Dean's innocence is if he's still at home when Phantom Thief moves. It's such simple logic, don't you understand? Not only about Dean, but even on the daily night patrols, you are getting more and more emotional, which is not a good thing. Have you ever thought about how Batman would react if he came back and saw you in your current state? Barbara spoke with a serious tone. A few months ago, when you persuaded Batman to give me a second chance, you weren't like this. What happened to you? Did the 2 failures against Phantom Thief affect you that much? Dick remained silent for a moment and replied, I just couldn't help but think, maybe we can find another way. Batman has always been suspicious of everything around him, so he expects us to be the same. Just like Dean, do we really have solid evidence to accuse him of being a Phantom Thief? Or is it just based on a vague intuition? No, we don't. Despite no motive, evidence, witness, or leads, we invaded his house without hesitation. We even installed surveillance in his home. It's as if we believe it's right to violate someone's privacy as long as the result is good. Is this really the right thing to do? While discussing Barbara, Dick also thought of himself as he gazed up at the ceiling. Barbara was taken aback. She didn't expect Dick to say these things. I've always thought Batman's words were good. I did my best to imitate his every word and action. But as time passed, I don't know why, but I felt more and more like I was living in Batman's shadow. Dick remembered, you know, I was involved in creating the Teen Titans, but you can't imagine the mindset I had when I first met them. Donna greeted me first, followed by Wally shaking my hand. Roy joked about my name, and Garth was not talkative but had a warm heart behind his cold face. I can never forget the genuine smiles on their faces. But what did I do? While I appeared to have fun and get into trouble with them, but in secret, I was always thinking of ways to defeat them, using their weaknesses and trust in me to my advantage. Dick shook his head with a bitter smile. Because that was the task Batman gave to me, and that day happened to be my 14th birthday. While spending time with the Titans, I suddenly realized that being a masked vigilante could also be filled with sunshine. I started to question whether Batman's methods were truly right. I know I shouldn't think this way, but I just can't control myself. Listening to Dick's story, Barbara didn't know what to say for a moment. No, maybe your thoughts are right, Dick, but this is Gotham, and we are different from them. In the end, Barbara sighed. Well. Dick simply made a soft sound in response. Anyway, after today's events are over, I will get the surveillance camera from Dean's house. As for your conflict with Batman's principles or code, I really don't want to get involved. Barbara said. No problem. After saying that, both of them ended the call and focused on their current task. According to the notice letter, Phantom Thief's target, the Dragon Egg Ruby Necklace, is located on the top floor of the Central Cultural Exhibition Hall. His arrival point is at the Jungle Exhibition Hall, which is also nearby the Cultural Exhibition Hall. So Dick and Barbara decided to split up and act separately. Dick is responsible for protecting the necklace, while Barbara plans to stop the Phantom Thief halfway. In their view, Dick's identity as Robin has already been exposed to the Phantom Thief. So, if he stays at the Jungle Exhibition Hall, the Phantom Thief might change his plans and target another exhibition hall. Phantom Thief does not know Barbara but is a better candidate for this task. At the same time, in the smoking room of the Cultural Exhibition Hall, a gloomy man with a cigarette in his mouth takes out a matchbox from his pocket and lights a match. With a flick, the match starts burning. The strange thing is that the man didn't use a match to light his cigarette but just stared at the swaying flame on the match in a daze. Waiting for the flame to go out, he lit the next match and continued to stare at the flame in a daze, repeating this action over and over again. Everyone who came here to smoke looked at him strangely, but no one dared approach him or talk to him. Many people were too afraid to get closer than 2 meters to this man. In the Jungle Exhibition Hall, Barbara's vigilant eyes quickly scan every person walking. Everyone present could potentially be a disguised Phantom Thief, so she doesn't let any details slip by. Once anyone was found to be acting suspiciously, Barbara would go over and question him. Her current identity is a temporary consultant for the GCPD, even though it only lasts for a day. During this time, she has the power to carry out open investigations. Without this position, Barbara wouldn't be able to interrogate suspicious people face-to-face as soon as she found a suspicious person. After all, not everyone has a relentless detective aura. Also, she doesn't want Batgirl to attract too much attention. Apart from Barbara, Jim was also present in the exhibition hall. On the one hand, he is very worried about the safety of his daughter. On the other hand, after the Pink Fantasy incident, Jim realizes that just commanding from the surveillance center is not enough. He is concerned that Phantom Thief might use the same tricks to mislead them, so Jim decides to personally go to the front lines and arrest him if he appears. As time passes, it gets closer to 10 in the evening. At that moment, Barbara suddenly felt her phone vibrating in her pocket. She squints her eyes and takes out her phone to check. She sees Dean's bedroom on the screen. From the video, it seems like Dean has just entered his room and is already wearing pajamas. He also has a book in his hand, a very impressive one. The book is called Blueprint for the Future Development of Computer Technology, written by Will Magnus, a top scientist from Star Labs. There are rumors that he is researching the creation of artificial intelligence life forms. This book contains advanced ideas and concepts in the field of computer technology. It's almost impossible for a normal person to understand, and even Barbara finds many parts of it too complex. Barbara wasn't surprised that a magician like Dean was reading a book related to computer science. Well, actually she is very surprised and even struggles to understand it, but she has gotten used to it. Since the first day she started monitoring Dean, he had been reading this book. Chapter 55, Chapter 55, Fan Club. Learn to treasure your life because unfortunately, it can be taken away from you anytime. Death Note. Dean lay in bed, picked up the book with a title that even a normal person couldn't understand at first glance, and began to read it with great interest. Within 5 minutes, Dean suddenly yawned, and his eyes were sleepy. In the next second, he closed the book and tossed it aside, lying down to enter and falling into a deep sleep with astonishing speed. Barbara has watched the same scene no less than 10 times. Many times, she wondered if Dean was really reading the book or if he just used it as a harmless sleeping pill. Dean was looking through those religious books that no one read in the Gotham City Public Library. His real purpose was to find a better sleeping pill. Is it purely a coincidence that there is a Roman message on the notice letter? Every time she saw this scene, Barbara would have this unbelievable idea that made her question how to tell Dick about it. If possible, she wouldn't want to think from that perspective. But looking at Dean's behavior, it seems, does it really make sense? Even so, 10 o'clock at night is a bit early for a high school student to go to bed. But it's clear that Dean is not like the others. During the days when Barbara monitored Dean, she noticed that he rested at different times each day. The most recent time was 11:59 p.m., and the earliest time was 9:30 p.m. His sleep schedule was quite weird. What's even more puzzling is that no matter when Dean went to bed the previous night, he would wake up at the same time the next day without oversleeping or waking up early. Is this some kind of weird way of practicing magic? Barbara couldn't understand it at all, but fortunately, she didn't have to need to. After all, by midnight tonight, Phantom Thief Kid would appear as planned, and Dean would still be sleeping, so he would have the perfect alibi. If one of them disappeared, Dean's suspicion would greatly increase. What Barbara didn't know was that, despite the footage showing Dean sleeping, that wasn't the case at the moment. At this very moment, inside Dean's bedroom, Dean held a small jammer device that he had just activated, calmly getting out of bed to change clothes. Thanks to the jammer device, the surveillance cameras would loop the footage of Dean sleeping in bed, and no existing surveillance technology on Earth could detect any anomalies. After changing clothes, Dean placed an ultra-realistic dummy he had prepared in advance and placed it on the bed. This made it look like he was still sleeping in the room. With everything in place, Dean left the bedroom and waited until he walked out of the room before turning off the jammer and putting it away. In the 10 days before this moment, Dean had been using this method to go to the museum and set up many dummies without being noticed under surveillance. After today's operation, I shouldn't have to worry about my identity being exposed for a long time. With this thought in mind, Dean made his way to the Natural History Museum. Not long after, disguised as an ordinary person, Dean arrived at the square of the museum. It was already late at night, and usually the museum would have closed several hours ago, but today was a special day. At the special request of the exhibition organizer, Mrs. Chandler, the museum was not allowed to be closed on March 10th and 11th. It had to be open for 48 hours straight. It was unknown whether it was her own idea or someone else's. It was all right that the museum was open, but what was really surprising was that there were still many people gathered here in Gotham at this late hour. The entire square was filled with people. There were probably at least 2,000 to 3,000 people, and that doesn't even count the people who went to the different exhibit halls. The audience is increasing. This works out perfectly. I didn't waste my effort setting everything up 10 days ago. Seeing so many people in the square, Dean showed a satisfied smile. Next, he had to perform a large-scale magic trick in front of the audience. Rumble. Just then, thunder suddenly echoed in the sky. Dean looked up and saw that the sky was now covered in dark clouds, with lightning flickering inside the clouds. With the sound of thunder, the people in the square immediately made a noise. Some were frustrated, while others were relieved. It's really going to rain. The weather forecast was right. Luckily, I brought an umbrella before leaving. Damn it! There weren't any signs of rain all day, and now it's pouring in the middle of the night. Hey! Buddy, your umbrella is pretty big. Can I share it with you? Aside from worrying about whether they had brought an umbrella, many people were concerned about another matter. I heard Phantom Thief move in the sky using a glider. With this weather, he surely can't use the glider, so will Phantom Thief still come? On the square, there was a small group of about 20 or 30 young people, each holding up signs that said Phantom Thief, with a large number of them being female. It seemed like they were fans of Phantom Thief, and one was worried about Phantom Thief being unable to use the glider. Phantom Thief doesn't use the glider every time, but I'm more worried that his disguise mask might get wet and fall off. If he can't disguise himself and someone sees his real face, his identity will be exposed, and the GCPD will definitely arrest him. Ah! Yeah, now that you mention it, that's really dangerous. It's better if the Phantom Thief doesn't come. I don't want him to end up in Blackgate Prison. Which fan of Phantom Thief kid wants to see him get caught? But he has already sent out his notice letter. If he doesn't show up, it would go against his own notice, and Phantom Thief's charm would be lost. I want him to come, but I don't want him to, it's so frustrating. Not far away, Dean eavesdropped on their conversation, his face full of surprise. Although he knew about this group's existence from the news, it was the first time he had seen his own fan club in person. Dean had originally thought that the Phantom Thief fan club was just for communicating with each other online, but he didn't know they would get so big that they would be planning real meetings. It's nice to have someone worry about you, even if your worries are for nothing. Although he really wanted to disguise himself as one of his fans and join the meeting, Dean had more important things to do right now. He looked at the Jungle Exhibition Hall, guarded by many police officers, with a slight smile forming on his lips. Just as I thought, everyone thinks that Caesar's guide points to the Jungle Exhibition Hall, but unfortunately, you guessed wrong. Checking the time, there was still over an hour until midnight, which was more than enough for Dean to make the final preparations. He turned away without looking back and set his sights on the Library Exhibition Hall on the west side of the museum, which is next to the Jungle Exhibition Hall on the east side of the Library Exhibition Hall. Chapter 56, Chapter 56, Firefly. How can emptiness be so heavy? Unknown. In the Gotham Natural History Museum, one of the 13 major exhibition halls is the Library Exhibition Hall, where there is a collection of natural history-related literature from countries all over the world, with over 250,000 books. The Library Exhibition Hall is located on the west side of the Cultural Exhibition Hall, and the distance between the two halls is very close. On the third floor, there is a staircase that connects them. Similar to the Gotham City Public Library, the Library Exhibition Hall has very few visitors, with only a few police officers passing through the corridor. Above the ceiling of the corridor, Dean kept crawling forward, and his movements were light and fast, and he barely made a sound. Dean was wearing a black, skin-tight suit that blended into the darkness. In the sky, 2 helicopters were circling between the 13 exhibition halls, and a round of searchlights swept around every corner. Dean carefully avoided the helicopter's searchlights as he crawled forward. Fortunately, there were only 2 helicopters, and their searchlights didn't cover a large area, so Dean had plenty of room to move. After a short while, he reached the end of the corridor. At this moment, Dean was lying between the 3rd and 4th floors of the Cultural Exhibition Hall. He chose to move on top of the corridor at the risk of drawing attention from the helicopters because there was a ventilation duct on the wall between the 3rd and 4th floors of the Cultural Exhibition Hall. This vent led directly to the exhibition hall, where the dragon's egg ruby necklace was displayed. This ventilation duct was located at the top of the corridor. Dean opened the ventilation duct and continued to move forward. Meanwhile, in a smoking area in the museum, the gloomy man with a cigarette in his mouth who never lit it was still there, lighting one match after another once it went out. He repeatedly lit new matches one after another without lighting the cigarette in his mouth. There were about a dozen people smoking in the area. They kept their distance from the gloomy man, not wanting to get too close. "What's the deal with that guy? I think he's almost used up a whole box of matches, but he hasn't lit that cigarette until now." The group hiding in the corner of the room glanced at the darkened man and whispered to each other. "Who knows, maybe there's something wrong with him, maybe we should call the hospital." "Shh, don't let him hear you. If you guessed right, this guy is definitely a dangerous person, and I don't want to get killed by a lunatic." Just then, the door of the smoking room suddenly opened. "Oh, I didn't expect so many people in here." A short and fat man in a tuxedo with a pointed nose walked in. As soon as everyone saw this person, their hearts skipped a beat, and a look of panic appeared on their faces. A sense of fear spread through the crowd. In Gotham, no citizen can stay calm when they see this strange-looking man because his name is Oswald Cobblepot. They couldn't even move, afraid they had angered the king of Gotham's underworld. "I'm sorry to disturb your smoke break, but I need to have an important discussion with this gentleman, so could you all step aside, please?" Penguin said with a friendly smile to the people in the smoking area. "No problem. Mr. Cobblepot, we'll leave now." When hearing the Penguin's words, the smokers quickly fled the room. Only the gloomy man and Penguin remained in the room. Clearly, the gloomy man was the one Penguin had important business to discuss with. "It's not time yet." The gloomy-faced man suddenly spoke out of nowhere, and Penguin immediately understood what he meant. "But it's almost time, Lynn. I came here to let you know that you can start preparing, like putting on your suit." Garfield Lynn, codenamed Firefly, was a supervillain who faced Batgirl during her debut battle. He had recently escaped from Blackgate Prison. Since his escape, both the GCPD and Batgirl have been looking for Firefly, and they have come up with nothing. Firefly seemed to have vanished into thin air. But they didn't know that Firefly and Penguin had actually made a deal. "Let me confirm one last time, I'll get $500,000 as promised once I take down Phantom Thief, right? I need to hear it from you personally." Firefly asked emotionlessly. "Please forgive me, Mr. Cobblepot. In Gotham, breaking contracts is as common as eating and drinking, but you are different. I've heard about your reputation, but I need assurance." "You're right, Linz. There's almost no trust in Gotham, but there are a few exceptions in the world. I'm a trustworthy businessman," Penguin promised Firefly. "I promise you, once you eliminate Phantom Thief, I will pay you $500,000 in clean cash." "Thank you for your generosity, Mr. Cobblepot, but I have one final thing to ask." Before Firefly could even ask, Penguin seemed to know what he wanted to ask and gave an answer. "I already know what you want to ask. My people have made all the preparations, and you can go wild with your abilities without any worries." Upon hearing this, a slight smirk appeared on Firefly's lips, revealing a sinister smile. "Happy hunting, Firefly." After a while, Dean quietly removed the iron fence from the top of his head and climbed up from the ventilation duct. This is a somewhat empty room with lots of red pipes and water valves, but no one is inside. What's that? Dean looks at some of the pipes and feels that something is not right. Boom! There was a sound of thunder, and the dark clouds in the sky seemed to have finally finished charging and began to rain. At first, it was still light rain, but it soon got heavier and heavier, so people in the square had to open their umbrellas. Those who didn't have umbrellas either shamelessly asked people around them to share or rushed to nearby halls to take shelter from the rain. In the central exhibition hall on the top floor of the museum, Dick stood by the window, looking at the sudden rain outside with a serious expression. It's less than 5 minutes until midnight. How will the phantom thief steal the necklace? At this final moment, everyone is fully focused. The dozen or so SWAT officers who surround the dragon's egg ruby necklace are all focused on protecting it. 5 minutes pass by in a flash. It's midnight. Chapter 57, Chapter 57, Miracles. I'm not fig-thing because I want to win. I'm fighting because I have to win. Ichigo Kurosaki, Bleach. I came, I saw, I conquered. At the same time, this line suddenly resounded in the square of the Natural History Museum. As soon as they heard the sound, Dick, Barbara, Jim, and Harvey's expressions changed. Because this phrase was one of Julius Caesar's most famous words. The quote itself wasn't anything special, but Julius Caesar, who said it, was definitely an extraordinary person. The most important thing is that everyone who has read the notice letter for Phantom Thief will think of the sentence. Follow the guidance of Caesar. The meaning of this sentence does not refer to the direction of the sculpture of Julius Caesar but to the declaration of his victory. In other words, Phantom Thief isn't planning to show up in the Jungle Exhibition Hall. But why is this broadcast happening now? Did the Phantom Thief set it up? How is it even possible for someone to figure it out? Inside the Jungle Exhibition Hall, Barbara clenched her teeth and thought about how this was different from cheating. Before that, she and Dick had searched the entire Natural History Museum, except for the Julius Caesar statue in the ancient Rome Exhibition Hall. They couldn't find anything related to the guidance of Julius Caesar. Damn it! The deputy curator, who was standing next to Commissioner Gordon, slapped his head not too far from her. Curator, a keeper or custodian of a museum or other collection. Yesterday at this time, someone in the museum's broadcast room found an extra note in their pocket with "I came, I saw, I conquered" written on it. The note also said they hoped to hear these words in the broadcast. When Jim heard the words, he suddenly became angry and asked, "Why didn't you report such an important matter to the GCPD? I was planning to contact you, but I forgot." Since the note didn't have Phantom Thief's signature, I didn't think much of it and assumed it was someone's prank, so I didn't take it seriously. The deputy curator seemed like he wanted to say something but quickly changed the subject in the next second. "Sir, look at the square, the Phantom Thief is there." At this time, a police officer ran over and reported anxiously. Jim immediately left the deputy curator and rushed to the window. On the square, an extremely eye-catching white figure stood on a telegraph pole with broadcast speakers. The white cloak was fluttered by the wind behind the Phantom Thief. "Oh my God! That's Phantom Thief!" Below the pole, there were dozens of members of the Phantom Thief fan club. "I can't believe it, I'm actually seeing him with my own eyes. It's incredible. I thought the clothes UPS in the news were attractive, but he's even more attractive in person." The rest of the people in the square, besides the fan club members, also gathered on this side. Even if they didn't like the Phantom Thief, a lot of people would stand in the rain at midnight to catch a glimpse of him. Everyone was curious about what type of criminal the Phantom Thief was. Some people have a good impression of the Phantom Thief, while others despise him. They come here to see how he handles the situation. Is he the Phantom Thief, the one who steals and then returns things? He doesn't look that impressive. There are so many people here this time. I don't believe that this strange thief boy can steal that dragon's egg ruby necklace in front of thousands of people. The discussions echoed throughout the square, and as more and more people expressed their opinions, it became a noisy argument. It is interesting that despite their attitudes towards the Phantom Thief, they all believe that they won't be hurt and are free to discuss it openly in the square. In Gotham's past crime scenes, this kind of scene was absolutely impossible. Phantom Thief's appearance silently changed many things. Hush! At this moment, the Phantom Thief put his index finger to his mouth and made a gesture of silence. His action seemed to have a kind of magic. The discussion slowly calmed down, and everyone's gaze focused on the Phantom Thief. After a while, the only thing that could be heard in the square was the sound of raindrops hitting the ground. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for waiting in the rain for my performance. To show my gratitude, I will now present the most wonderful show for all of you. Phantom Thief gave a small bow to the people below, and his voice came through the broadcast so that everyone in the inside of the museum could hear it. Following that, he raised his right hand and clapped in front of the audience. Ping! 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 Countless beams of light suddenly shot out from the roofs of the 13 exhibition halls, all focused on the Phantom Thief Kid. The sounds of mechanical activation were heard one after another. For this performance, I hope to do it up close in front of all of you. Phantom Thief said this, then grabbed his cloak, swung it, and was instantly covered in a cloud of smoke. Under the rain, the smoke disappeared in an instant, and the Phantom Thief on the pole had disappeared. Ladies and gentlemen! Phantom Thief's voice echoed once again, and the direction of the spotlight also turned to the center of the audience. It's showtime! Everyone turned to look but saw that Phantom Thief had already moved from the pole to the center of the audience without anyone noticing. The amazing scene caused a lot of surprise among the audience. Wow, what just happened? How did he do that? Does Phantom Thief have the power to teleport? Are you ready? Please pay attention to the raindrops in front of you and try not to blink. Phantom Thief slowly raised his right hand and curled his lips as he snapped his fingers. Snap! An extremely shocking scene happened in front of them. When the sound of the snap reached everyone's ears through the broadcast, they were stunned to see that the raindrops falling in front of them were in mid-air. Countless water droplets stopped around them as if the Phantom Thief had stopped time. Oh my goodness! Is this real? Am I dreaming? The audience exclaimed with genuine astonishment. Don't be too surprised. It's hard to stop the rain, but this is not a true miracle yet. Phantom Thief smiled slightly and said something shocking. Please, do not blink because what comes next is the moment of seeing a miracle. They saw the Phantom Thief open his hands and turn toward the sky while slightly closing his eyes. The next second, he suddenly opened his eyes wide and raised his hands upward. A scream erupted from the crowd. Ah! Look at those raindrops, they are actually flowing upwards. Chapter 58, Intervention. The two hardest things to say in life are hello for the first time and goodbye for the last. Moira Rogers. On the square, thousands of people were deeply shocked by what they saw. The raindrops that were supposed to fall from the sky are now flowing upward in an unbelievable way. From the audience's perspective, Phantom Thief seems to have broken the basic rules of the world at this moment. Just like Phantom Thief said just now, he made all the audience present see a miracle. Even in this world full of superheroes, there were very few people had ever seen a scene as incredible as this one. Even those who didn't believe in the Phantom Thief at first couldn't help but exclaim in shock at this point. A miracle! This is truly a miracle! This is by far the most amazing magic show I've ever seen. Even if you tell me now that Phantom Thief is a magician, I wouldn't doubt it. Stop! This isn't just magic. I've heard that there are people in Gotham who use magic under the disguise of magic performances. Could it be the Phantom Thief? In the cultural exhibition hall, next to a certain window, Firefly looked at Phantom Thief, surrounded by everyone in the square. His eyes were full of amusement. Firefly immediately understood how Phantom Thief made the rainwater flow upward with just one glance. Before becoming Firefly, Garfield Lins worked as a professional movie special effects artist, specializing in creating effects like burning and explosions. From an early age, he had been fascinated with fire as a physical sensation. However, this didn't mean Firefly knew nothing about special effects other than burning. On the contrary, he had a deep knowledge of different types of special effects. At first glance, special effects and magic performances seemed completely different, but Firefly enjoyed creating special effects that closely resembled reality. For this reason, he seriously studied different physics. The secret to making rainwater flow upward was hidden in the lights emitted by the 13 exhibition halls and the broadcast. Phantom Thief made the lights flicker at a special frequency, lighting the raindrops and making them appear to the human eye as if the raindrops were suspended in midair or flowing backward. In reality, it was just to trick the audience's vision. Anyone who had studied physics carefully could think of this principle. In fact, it is definitely not an easy task to achieve success in such a large-scale square, and it is almost impossible to achieve. But Phantom Thief had perfectly performed it all. That's an interesting idea. If this creativity were used in a movie, it would create even more incredible effects. I'm becoming more and more interested in this Phantom Thief. A sinister smile appeared on Firefly's face. He who burns will certainly have the most glorious moment. At this moment, a small number of people in the audience in the square understood the principle of the backflow of rainwater. But they did not reveal this so-called secret to the people around them with an arrogant face. The gap between theory and practice was much larger than people imagined. The Phantom Thief delivered a visual feast to the audience, which surprised and shocked the audience. This was the essence of magic, and nothing was more important than this. Bang! Just then, a gunshot rang out from behind the crowd. Everyone spread. Stay away from Phantom Thief. Jim led the dozens of police officers rushing over from the jungle exhibition hall. Besides that, guards from other exhibition halls also gathered here, surrounding the entire square. Only the SWAT in the museum didn't move, as they had to protect the most important dragon's egg ruby necklace. Meanwhile, Barbara wasn't by Jim's side. He was worried about her safety and asked her to stay put in the jungle exhibition hall. Working late again, Commissioner Gordon. You're Gotham's beacon of justice, you shouldn't overwork yourself. You need to rest. Seeing Jim coming, the Phantom Thief immediately smiled and greeted him loudly. That attitude is like having known a good friend for many years. Jim almost lost his breath when he heard what the Phantom Thief said. Why am I out here on duty in the middle of the night? It's all because of you, Phantom Thief. If you follow Catwoman's example and retire, I might actually get a 2-day break. Ladies and gentlemen, please step back from Phantom Thief. Otherwise, there might be a risk of being taken as hostages. Jim loudly shouted to the crowd and then tried to negotiate with the Phantom Thief. Phantom Thief. The rain is getting heavier, and you can't use smoke bombs or similar tricks to hide anymore. Also, don't think about releasing dummies to confuse us. It's a shame you picked the wrong time to act. You may think returning stolen items will bail you out of your crime or that exposing others' criminal acts using illegal means is doing good, but I must tell you it's not true. Jim's face turned serious as he stared intensely at the Phantom Thief. Phantom Thief, your actions have attracted many imitators. If we let them continue, one day the entire city's order will be ruined. If you still have a conscience, surrender now and accept the punishment you deserve. Upon hearing this, the Phantom Thief shook his head. Guiding people to imitate crimes was never my intention, Commissioner Gordon. I never considered myself a hero or a vigilante. I am a magician who simply wants to bring fantastic performances to the audience, that's all. Phantom Thief suddenly heard a clear female voice and a strong gust of wind coming from behind him. Wow, has anyone ever told you that you really know how to talk? The Phantom Thief reacted quickly and dodged as he felt the gust of wind. He saw a dark, slender figure running past him in a kicking posture. She was holding a rope that went to the top of a nearby pole. This showed that she had just used it to swing over. After realizing that the phantom thief had dodged her, she immediately released the rope and slid down to the ground. At this point, the people around could clearly see who this figure was. A girl is wearing a bat suit. Her red hair fluttered behind the bat helmet, and her curvy figure was visible in the black bodysuit. The bat symbol on her chest was even more eye-catching. Oh my, it's Batgirl. We used to have only Robin, but now even Batgirl is after the Phantom Thief. Wait a minute, if Batgirl is here, then where's Robin? Why isn't he the one confronting the Phantom Thief? Chapter 59, Chapter 59, Batgirl vs Phantom Thief. Life is like a book, some chapters are sad, some chapters are happy, but all are necessary for the full story. Unknown. Not long ago, Jim's shout had made the surrounding audience keep a distance from Phantom Thief. With so many GCPD guns pointed their way, even if they liked Phantom Thief, they wouldn't dare to stay there. Now, Batgirl had entered the scene and was confronting the Phantom Thief. It was like an underground arena, with the two of them surrounded by countless people and the GCPD in a small circle for a life-or-death duel. However, the atmosphere between the two of them didn't seem to be as tense as expected. Batgirl. The Phantom Thief turned around and looked a little surprised. I thought I'd see Robin, I didn't expect another little bat. Trust me, you wouldn't want to see a big bat. Batgirl responded while moving her wrist and flashing a smile. Are you ready, Phantom Thief? I won't go easy on you like Robin. Is that so? But I don't think he ever held back. The Phantom Thief tilted his head and responded. In a few minutes, you might not be saying that. Hearing this, Phantom Thief stroked his chin and asked with a half smile, do you bats like to talk tough before fighting? But I heard that you are all the type who doesn't like to talk much. When I met Robin for the first time, he said something similar to me and threatened to catch me next time, but the result, as you can see, I'm still here. Obviously, you've misunderstood something. Batgirl narrowed her eyes and said, the reason I'm being nice to you is because Robin, well, he kind of likes you. He thinks you can change. But since you seem to prefer a more easy way, I won't waste any words, and let's fight. Hearing Batgirl shout, she swung her hand in the direction of Phantom Thief. Swoosh! 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 3 shiny batarangs shot towards Phantom Thief from different angles. A flash of light flashed across Phantom Thief's eyes, and he quickly raised his hand holding the card gun at some point like lightning. Bang! 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 He shot out 3 playing cards that collided with the batarangs in mid-air. The batarangs were deflected and fell to the ground around the Phantom Thief. After shooting the 3 cards, Phantom Thief showed off his coolness by rotating his playing card gun on his finger before holding it again. This calm and confident attitude made the audience even more amazed. When the criminals in Gotham met Batman, they were either so scared that they didn't even dare to move, or they were so arrogant that they didn't take Batman and others seriously. No matter which Bat family it is, the final ending is pretty much the same, with the Bat family teaching them a lesson. It's really rare that Phantom Thief is so calm and confident. You attacked me right after speaking, isn't that a bit dirty? The Phantom Thief shook his head helplessly. If you don't want to listen to reason, then I'll use our usual approach, the Bat approach. Batgirl said it in an innocent tone. As her voice echoed, Phantom Thief's pupils suddenly shrank. Because Batgirl's voice was coming from behind him, and she was almost right behind him. When he looked back again, Batgirl had disappeared without a trace. In front of Phantom Thief and so many audiences, nobody noticed how Batgirl managed to get behind him. When did you? Phantom Thief exclaimed. He quickly tried to move forward to create some space between him and Batgirl. Now it's too late to run. A proud smile curled up on the corner of Batgirl's mouth. She grabbed the Phantom Thief by the collar and pulled him back with all her strength. Splash! The Phantom Thief hit the ground with a thud and couldn't get up again. Robin said you were talented, but now it seems like you're nothing special. Batgirl smirked, feeling proud of herself. Hey, anyone from GCPD, can I borrow some handcuffs? She turned her head and shouted in the direction of Jim and the others. As the audience saw this scene, the crowd watching started booing. What a joke! The Phantom Thief can't even beat a girl. Well, it is Batgirl, after all. It's not a surprise Phantom Thief lost to her. Isn't it unfair? Robin couldn't even beat Phantom Thief in 2 crimes, but now Batgirl has defeated him in 3 moves. Doesn't that mean Robin's much weaker than Batgirl? Compared to the miracle magician who made the rain flow, the current Phantom Thief didn't seem like anything at all, which left everyone shocked. Just when people were about to regret the shock they had just had, a turning point appeared again. Wait! Look at the Phantom Thief on the ground. There seems to be something wrong with his face. A voice suddenly rang out among the audience. Of course something is wrong. Who wouldn't be embarrassed after getting knocked out by a girl? One of the haters of the Phantom Thief retorted disdainfully. No, take a closer look, there is really something wrong with Phantom Thief. More and more audiences noticed the problem, and Batgirl also noticed it. She lowered her head for a closer look and noticed nothing strange about his body or suit. The moment she saw the Phantom Thief's head, her expression changed. Because it was a fluffy round dummy head with a funny smiley face, and the 2 eyes looked sideways to the left as if they were laughing at someone. When did this happen? Batgirl exclaimed. Robin didn't tell me that you were very capable, but now it seems you're not that impressive after all. The Phantom Thief spoke with a soft and charming tone, projecting his voice above the bustling crowd. At some point, they looked up and spotted the Phantom Thief standing on the pole, still wearing his clothes and cloak. Hearing Phantom Thief speak with his own words, Batgirl's face under the helmet suddenly flushed red. Although you are wearing a helmet, I can tell that you must be a beautiful person. The life of vigilantes fighting and violence all day is not suitable for a beauty like you, Ms. Bat. The Phantom Thief then thanked the audience while bowing slightly from the pole. He said, "Thank you all for watching my performance today, but unfortunately, I have to leave now. Oh, by the way, Ms. Bat, I hope you like my leaving gift. Remember to look at your helmet." With that, the Phantom Thief swirled his cloak and disappeared in an instant. No matter how many times I see it, I find it hard to believe that the Phantom Thief isn't using magic. Can magic really achieve teleportation like that? The audience praised him again in awe. Leave gift? Helmet. Batgirl was puzzled by Phantom Thief's last words. She slowly stretched out her hand to touch the helmet and actually felt something. When she took it down, a bright red rose appeared in her hand. Another rose, can't men be more creative? Batgirl said, but her eyes sparkled with a hint of fascination. Chapter 60, Dilemma. The one you love and the one who loves you are never, ever the same person. Chuck Palahniuk. Commissioner Gordon, GCPD officers, and Batgirl, I will bring you even more exciting performances in the future. Please look forward to it, ha 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 ha. Just a few seconds after Phantom Thief disappeared from the pole, a cheerful laugh echoed from the sky. All attention shifted towards the voice of Phantom Thief as he glided through the air with his glider, making his way towards the Jungle Exhibition Hall. He's heading back to the Jungle Exhibition Hall. Seeing this scene, Batgirl and Jim frowned. The information they got from the first line of the notice letter was that the Phantom Thief would show up in the Jungle Exhibition Hall at midnight on March 10. Then he would use this as a starting point to steal the Dragon's Egg ruby necklace from the museum's Cultural Exhibition Hall. But when midnight came, it was true that the Phantom Thief had appeared, but his location was on the large square of the Natural History Museum, which meant that he did not intend to use the Jungle Exhibition Hall as the starting point for his crime. So, they confidently rushed out from the Jungle Exhibition Hall. Now, the Phantom Thief flew back to the Jungle Exhibition Hall, leaving everyone confused. If his target was the necklace, why didn't he go directly to the Cultural Exhibition Hall instead of the Jungle Exhibition Hall? Is the way the notice was understood correct? Ta-da-da. In the sky above Phantom Thief, 2 police helicopters approached and hovered just above him. The gun on the bottom of the helicopter was already aimed at him. Sir, Phantom Thief is about to reach the rooftop of the Jungle Exhibition Hall. Our weapons are ready. Should we open fire? The pilot contacted Jim through the communicator. He was confident that he could turn the Phantom Thief into dust in an instant. Hearing the question from his subordinates, Jim showed a hesitant expression on his face. In all honesty, he believed that the Phantom Thief must be brought to justice, but he didn't think he deserved to die. Even according to Gotham law, if the criminal still resists and refuses to cooperate, the police will not be held accountable if they kill him on the spot. If it were the Joker, Two-Face, or any other criminal from Arkham Asylum, Jim would not hesitate to give the order to open fire. But Phantom Thief was different. During his first crime, Jim may have had no objection when he committed the crime for the first time, and now Gordon really doesn't want him to die like this. It seems that there is nothing to hesitate about in this situation. If you don't want to kill, then don't. Any ordinary person would think that way. But Jim's way of thinking was different. Thinking of its deeper importance, Phantom Thief's existence could lead to a wave of dangerous imitators. This is an extremely dangerous situation, and there has been a similar situation in Gotham. If they could quickly capture the Phantom Thief, Jim could temporarily set aside his personal feelings and prevent any potential threat. And that's what was causing his dilemma. Hey, Jim, don't forget you have an agreement with him. At this moment, Batgirl suddenly came to Jim and reminded her with a serious face. Jim was taken aback to hear those words, but then he remembered that Batman had told him he hoped he could keep the GCPD police from killing criminals too easily in front of Batman and his sidekicks unless they had to do it. For now, hold your fire and continue monitoring Phantom Thief. Wait for further instructions. After being reminded by Batgirl, Jim immediately made a decision. That doesn't make sense. The weather conditions should make it difficult to control a glider. Why is Phantom Thief flying so smoothly, and his speed is a bit too fast? At this time, someone in the square suddenly shouted. When everyone heard it, yes, with such heavy rain and such strong wind, and there was airflow rolled up by helicopter in the sky, a regular glider would have been blown away long ago. It seemed impossible for Phantom Thief to fly so steadily with such incredible speed. Some people wanted to see what Phantom Thief had done, but the weather was too dark, and the rain made it impossible to see Phantom Thief in the air. Helicopter 1, Helicopter 2, report on Phantom Thief Kid's status. Without hesitation, Gordon took the walkie-talkie and contacted the pilots of the 2 helicopters. The pilots responded, "It's a jet-propelled rotor. We found that Phantom Thief installed a jet-propelled rotor on the tail of his glider. We don't know how he did it, but it's definitely a powerful device." After hearing the pilot's report, Jim's eyebrows twitched. Why does Phantom Thief always use such strange and weird gadgets? At this point, he was just like Batman. It could be that Phantom Thief and Batman graduated from the same school. You follow me back to the Cultural Exhibition Hall, and everyone else, go to the Jungle Exhibition Hall to chase Phantom Thief. There was no time to think about these things. Jim called for all the police officers present and instructed most of them to the Jungle Exhibition Hall to chase Phantom Thief. Batgirl followed this group. As for himself, he led a small team back to the Cultural Exhibition Hall. If the main force lost track of Phantom Thief, they could serve as the last line of defense to protect the Dragon's Egg ruby necklace. Phantom Thief is going to steal that necklace, hey? Do you think he will be able to do it in the end? Leaving that aside for now, what should we do? Should we go home or wait for the final result? The GCPD officers flooded towards the Jungle Exhibition Hall and the Cultural Exhibition Hall, and the audience who were originally in the square was a little at a loss at this time. It's quite late now, and I have to work tomorrow. I need to go home. Whatever the result, I'll just read the headlines in tomorrow's newspaper. If you want to go home, go ahead. Seeing one of Phantom Thief's magic performances was enough for me. But I'll wait here for news of the necklace being stolen. Although, how can the stealing of the necklace be considered good news? I don't care about that. It's none of my business if a rich person loses something. Phantom Thief's success is what I'm waiting for, so I can see his even more amazing performance. The audience was divided into two parts. The majority chose to go home, while another group chose to stay and wait for Phantom Thief to successfully steal the necklace. As for the small group of people, they made a completely different choice. They actually followed and rushed towards the exhibition hall. It was strange because they weren't all heading to the Jungle Exhibition Hall or the Cultural Exhibition Hall. Many of them went to other halls, in pairs or small groups, and it's unclear what their plans were. Maybe they wanted to experience the feeling of walking through a museum at night. At this moment, a man wearing a black hoodie and a hat on his head walked into the Library Exhibition Hall located on the west side of the Cultural Exhibition Hall. As I suspected, I knew you wouldn't take straight to the point. Just as he stepped through the entrance, a voice sounded from behind him. Phantom Thief. Chapter 61, Chapter 61, Exposed. No matter how much suffering you went through, you never wanted to let go of those memories. Haruki Murakami. Hearing the voice behind him, the man in the hood who had just stepped into the door turned around with a surprised expression on his face. He saw a teenager wearing a red, green, and yellow suit staring at him with sharp eyes. The distance between the two was less than 3 meters, and there was a door between them. It was Robin who came. The guy in the hoodie looked around as if he were looking for the so-called Phantom Thief. Then he realized that, besides himself, there was basically no one else around. He pointed at himself with a dazed expression and asked, "The Phantom Thief you called just now, isn't it me? Don't play dumb. Even if you don't take off your disguise, I can smell you with just my nose, Phantom Thief." Robin folded his hands and snorted coldly. The man's surprise immediately vanished when he realized that Robin had verified his identity, and a calm expression took its place. He grabbed the collar of his hood and twitched lightly, and all the clothes on his body were pulled off as if they were connected together and revealed the real appearance of the Phantom Thief. During the whole process, Robin stared at Phantom Thief intently, trying to figure out the secret of how he changed clothes so quickly. As usual, he couldn't figure it out. It was like magic. "Tisk tisk, I thought my disguise was perfect. How did you see through it?" Phantom Thief asked and was stunned and looking at Robin. "Did you think that I didn't learn 1 or 2 tricks when I fought with you these 2 times? Robin said it with a slight smirk. "Although most people solve the notice letter as you appear at the Jungle Exhibition Hall, I know you are a guy who is very good at deceiving others with distractions. So, from the beginning, I didn't fully trust your notice. It turns out you did trick everyone in the end, showing up in the square and performing a physics experiment in front of thousands of audience." Robin looked at the Phantom Thief with a hint of disdain. "But it was just a visual trick using strobe lights. How dare you say it's a miracle that makes the rain flow upwards? It's no wonder they say the essence of magic is deception. Can I take that as a compliment from you?" The Phantom Thief tilted his head and asked. "As if." Robin couldn't help but roll his eyes. The Phantom Thief's thought process was truly unique. "Anyway, what do you mean to say that you never believed from the very beginning that I would not follow the plan on the notice letter, and you think I'm not trustworthy?" The Phantom Thief spread his hands helplessly and spoke in an innocent tone. "That doesn't explain how you saw through my disguise, and you didn't even show up to the square just now," he added. "Who said I wasn't in the square?" Robin suddenly interrupted. "I was one of the audiences who watched your entire performance up close." The Phantom Thief's pupils shrank. How did he not notice Robin in the crowd? That couldn't be possible. With such bright colors as yellow, green, and red, he stood out from the crowd. How could he have missed Robin if he was really in the square? "Am I blind?" Or am I colorblind? The phantom thief found himself doubting his own eyes. What's that look in your eyes? Do you think you can only disguise yourself? Robin's eyelids twitched, and he paused before continuing. I know you wouldn't do something without a purpose. When you appeared in the square, I guessed that your goal was to attract all the police officers from the museum, disrupting the pre-planned defenses of the GCPD. No, maybe not all of them. You know very well that the personnel at the cultural exhibition hall wouldn't move no matter what. So, your real target must be a hall that could safely lead you to where the necklace is located. The most likely ones are the Jungle Exhibition Hall and the Library Exhibition Hall, located on the east and west sides of the Cultural Exhibition Hall, respectively. Because of their first understanding of the notice letter, most people subconsciously considered the Jungle Exhibition Hall an important location. Therefore, when you flew a fake dummy with a jet-propelled rotor towards the Jungle Exhibition Hall, no one would suspect that it wasn't really you. They would naturally follow you, and that's when you could disguise yourself as an ordinary visitor and casually walk into the unguarded Library Exhibition Hall. Just now, I briefly looked around the Library Exhibition Hall. If I'm not mistaken, there seems to be a ventilation duct leading directly to the top floor above the corridor connecting the Library Exhibition Hall to the Cultural Exhibition Hall, which I guess is your route of action. In short, Robin summarized, if someone goes alone to the Library Exhibition Hall at this moment, it's the phantom thief. In the crowded square, you can easily blend into the crowd and escape, which is why I never showed up. Now, I have the opportunity to face you alone. Clap, clap, clap. The phantom thief clapped his hands and said it with a smile. Great explanation, I didn't expect you to discover even that ventilation duct. You are worthy of being the partner of the world's #1 detective. Should I start calling you the Great Detective from now on? You're still able to laugh, phantom thief, but you have nowhere to run. A victorious glint appeared in Robin's eyes. I have one more question. Batgirl mentioned to me earlier that you seem to like me a little, and I have similar feelings too. The phantom thief suddenly spoke in a calm tone. Robin was stunned. What was this strange guy talking about? Seeing phantom thief, he raised his head slightly and said softly, even if a thief falls for a detective, it's nothing, right? What are you trying to say, phantom thief? Robin asked with a frown. What I'm trying to say is that 3 minutes is up. The corner of Phantom Kid's mouth raised slightly, showing a half-smile expression. As soon as Robin saw that expression, he had a bad feeling. Let me remind you, you haven't even entered the door yet. As soon as the words fell, the phantom thief quickly raised his right hand, and the playing card gun was already in his hand at some point. Bang! Bang! He fired 2 shots, and the 2 playing cards flew towards Robin. After shooting, the phantom thief turned around and ran, not caring if the cards hit or not. Robin quickly dodged the cards with a sidestep. Just give up, you can't escape. Robin began saying, but then he noticed that the automatic door of the Library Exhibition Hall was about to close. He suddenly remembered that all the automatic doors in the Natural History Museum had a 3-minute time limit before they closed if left open. When Phantom Thief looked up just now, he was actually checking the countdown of the door closing. Robin gritted his teeth angrily and ran to the door as fast as he could. Unfortunately, dodging the playing cards slowed him down by a few seconds, and just as the automatic door closed, he collided with it. It's fine, he can only delay me for a few seconds. Robin took a deep breath and stepped back 2 steps to allow the sensor to sense him again and open the door. However, at this moment, Robin's eyes suddenly went dark. Chapter 62, Chapter 62, A Race Against Time. If you want to find the right person, be the right person. Unknown. Just a second ago, there was a sudden power outage in the Library Exhibition Hall, and all the lights inside and outside went out. The scene behind the automatic door went completely dark, and nothing could be seen. Not only the Library Exhibition Hall. Robin turned around and looked around, and all 13 Natural History Museum exhibition halls were blacked out. Only a dozen or so streetlights on the square were still dimly lit. The sudden power loss was both unexpected and expected. Almost every time Phantom Thief performed, he would stage a power outage at the scene, and Robin had long been prepared for this. However, Robin didn't expect that the power outage would happen right now. Without electricity, it is naturally impossible for the automatic sensor door to open automatically. After this delay, the Phantom Thief might already be on his way to the top floor of the Cultural Exhibition Hall. Robin looked at the tightly closed automatic door in front of him. He now has several ways to break through the door quickly. He could use brute force to smash open the door or use a sticky bomb to blow it open. However, that would definitely leave him far behind the Phantom Thief. Robin didn't hesitate at all. After noticing the power outage in the museum, he immediately changed the route. If the Phantom Thief still chooses to go to the Cultural Exhibition Hall through that ventilation duct, he should be heading that way. While running, Robin took out his grappling gun and shot a rope towards the top part of the Library Exhibition Hall. Then, using the rope, he swung towards the east side of the main structure of the Library Exhibition Hall. That was where the corridor connecting the Library Exhibition Hall and the Cultural Exhibition Hall was located. Swish! Just before swinging to the top of the corridor, Robin released the rope and jumped high, doing several acrobatic moves in the air. He landed lightly in the corridor. Without stopping, Robin rushed towards the ventilation opening at the end of the corridor. However, when he arrived, he found that the ventilation opening was tightly closed from the inside with an iron mesh. There was white letter paper stuck to the mesh. Even without looking, Robin was sure that the Phantom Thief had left it and that it probably had some mocking words. To the Wonder Boy, Robin. When you see this card, it means you're too slow. I've already been gone for quite some time. I sincerely advise you to go home now, but if you're not willing to give up, let's meet at the final treasure secure place. As he expected, Robin read the note. Coward. I was only delayed for 2 or 3 minutes, and in such a short time, Phantom Thief not only arrived here but also closed the entrance and left a message. How did he move so fast? What's the trick behind it? Robin grumbled and crumpled the note before putting it in his pocket. Immediately after, he took out his communicator and contacted Batgirl. What's going on, Robin? Did Phantom Thief go to the Cultural Exhibition Hall? Batgirl's anxious voice came from the communicator. Yeah, probably. Are you still searching for him at the Jungle Exhibition Hall? Robin asked back. I didn't find him here, at least before the power outage. He seemed to disappear suddenly. Hearing Batgirl's words, Robin couldn't help but smirk. He repeated the conversation he had with the Phantom Thief to Batgirl. What? You're saying you already knew Phantom Thief wouldn't go to the Jungle Exhibition Hall, and the one in the sky was fake? Why didn't you tell me this before? And when I was being tricked like a fool by him, you just stood there watching. Batgirl's face turned pale and then red. Suddenly, she felt like she could report to Batman that they had found the Joker. Isn't there a saying that says you have to deceive your enemy before deceiving yourself? If I had told you all my ideas, what if he had seen through our plan while facing you and changed his plans? Then we would have failed. Robin chuckled. And this way, you also get to see how capable Phantom Thief is, so you won't underestimate him. If you didn't tell me anything, isn't that also failure too? In the end, Phantom Thief still got away. Batgirl snorted. Robin's smile froze, and he coughed twice. In short, don't waste time in the Jungle Exhibition Hall, go back to the Cultural Exhibition Hall to protect the necklace. If you move quickly, maybe we still have time. Oh, by the way, I forgot to ask, how is Dean doing now? I checked earlier. When the Phantom Thief appeared, Dean was still sleeping in his bedroom. There is no problem with the surveillance footage. I made a mistake. I shouldn't have doubted Dean. Batgirl replied. On the other side, the Cultural Exhibition Hall, the central exhibition hall on the top floor. Jim, who had split from the main force and returned here with a small group of people, had just entered the exhibition hall. Due to a sudden power outage in the museum, all the lights in the exhibition hall went out, and only flashlights could be used as a light source. However, only a few police officers from the GCPD had the habit of carrying flashlights, so their vision was extremely limited. Luckily, Phantom Thief's performance in the square had attracted most of the regular visitors away from the exhibition hall. Now, the only ones left in the hall were GCPD personnel. They didn't need to see everything clearly in the exhibition hall. They just needed enough light to show the glass cabinet containing the dragon's egg ruby necklace and the dozen or so SWAT officers guarding it. "Harvey, what's the situation here? Have you found any trace of the Phantom Thief?" Jim immediately found Harvey, who was in charge of this area, and after exchanging a secret signal, they asked about the current situation. "No problem, Jim. So far, the Phantom Thief hasn't shown up. He must have seen the necklace surrounded by SWAT officers and realized he had no chance of stealing it, so he ran off. I told you this plan would work, ha ha ha." Harvey laughed. Thud. Just then, a crisp sound echoed in the dark and silent exhibition hall, almost breaking the silence. Listening to the sound, it seems to be the sound of shoes stepping on the glass in this direction. Jim and Harvey's faces turned pale, and they quickly looked towards the necklace. Even the dozen or so SWAT officers surrounding the necklace heard it, and they all turned their heads at the same time. Next, all the police officers in the exhibition hall directed their attention in that direction, their flashlights shining. They saw a white figure squatting on the glass cabinet in a half-kneeling position, and the thing in his hand that glowed brightly under the light of the flashlight seemed to be the dragon's egg ruby necklace. Chapter 63, Chapter 63, The Illusion. A person who left in anger will always come back. But the one who left with smile will never come back. Unknown. Who else is the person squatting on the glass cabinet besides Phantom Thief? Jim and the others had imagined all the possible locations where the Phantom Thief might show up, but they never expected him to appear on top of the glass case where the necklace was kept. How is this possible? There is no ventilation above the glass case, and there is a perimeter of more than 10 special police officers surrounding it. How did he manage to silently land on top of the glass case? Could the Phantom Thief really teleport? Well, when he finally landed, there was a slight noise, but that's not important. What's more important is how the Phantom Thief managed to take the necklace out of the glass case. From the outside, the glass case didn't show any obvious signs of damage, but the dragon's egg ruby necklace inside ended up in the Phantom Thief's hand. That is built by LexCorp with ultra-high-strength glass that is rarely shattered even in Metropolis. How could the Phantom Thief have taken the necklace through the glass case? It was simply unbelievable. "Oh, sorry about that. I didn't expect to make a loud sound. My apologies for disturbing you." On top of the glass case, the Phantom Thief scratched the back of his head and smiled apologetically. "Phantom Thief!" As Jim shouted loudly, all the police officers in the exhibition hall raised their guns and aimed at Phantom Thief. As for the dozen or so special police officers surrounding the glass case, they stared at him aggressively as if they were about to pounce on him and tear him apart in the next second. "Wow, you're just aiming at me and not immediately firing." With dozens of guns pointing at him and facing the intimidation of more than 10 armed men, the Phantom Thief didn't show any signs of panic. Instead, he looked at Jim with an odd expression and calmly said, "I guess you must have given them the order not to shoot at will in advance, Commissioner Gordon. In that case, I should probably thank you for saving my life." Suddenly, Jim noticed that the Phantom Thief's waist seemed to be tied with a black rope. Following the rope above to about 10 centimeters below the ceiling, there was another rope attached horizontally on both sides of the wall. Obviously, the Phantom Thief had climbed upside down to the top of the glass case through the horizontal rope in the blind spot of everyone's sight and then used the vertical rope to drop onto the glass case. As for why his cloak didn't fall due to gravity while he was crawling along the rope, that remained a mystery. Moreover, this still didn't explain how the phantom thief managed to take the necklace from inside the glass case. "Everyone except me, do not fire without authorization." Dean saw Jim raise his hand and shoot the rope above Phantom accurately, and at the same time, he warned his subordinates loudly not to shoot just because they heard the gunshots. Phantom thief put the necklace down. "You have nowhere to escape now." Hearing Jim's warning, the phantom thief nodded slightly, and the monocle on his right eye suddenly reflected a strange reflection, which immediately made his entire face blur. At the same time, the hand with which phantom thief scratched the back of his head suddenly threw out several objects. Bang! The objects exploded instantly when they fell, releasing a thick smoke that quickly spread, soon enveloping a space within a dozen meters around the glass case. At this rate, it wouldn't take more than a dozen seconds for the entire exhibition hall to be filled with thick smoke. Seeing that the situation was not good, the group of special police officers surrounding the phantom thief sensed danger and instinctively attacked him without waiting for Jim's command. However, the phantom thief seemed to have expected this. Just before the officers started their attack, he jumped up and used the officers' hands to use his strength to jump out of the perimeter. Once he landed on the ground, the phantom thief pulled out a gas mask from nowhere and immediately put it on. Before more than a dozen special police officers could react, a deep sense of sleepiness and numbness flowed over them. They stumbled a few steps before collapsing to the ground. Not only the special police officers but also the other police officers who were closer also fell to the ground. Not good. This is hypnotic smoke. Jim quickly covered his mouth and nose, but unfortunately, the smoke had already spread to this area. He had already inhaled some of the smoke, and his vision started to blur. Forcing himself to wake up, Jim focused his gaze on the white figure inside the smoke and moved shakily toward it. "I've got you now." With determination, Jim finally reached the phantom thief and tightly grabbed his clothes. Puff! Jim was holding phantom thief at this time when he suddenly made a strange muffled noise and burst out like a deflated balloon. Looking at everything that happened in front of him, Jim's vision darkened, and he couldn't resist the overwhelming drowsiness anymore and passed out on the ground. At this moment, the phantom thief came out of the smoke beside him and squatted down to look at the unconscious Jim. He thought to himself, "I did this, Commissioner Gordon, because you're always under so much stress. I hope you'll appreciate this gesture and not stop hunting me after you wake up." The phantom thief searched Jim's body and took out a strange device. Then he returned to the glass case. The phantom thief placed his hands on both sides of the glass case and lifted it to reveal the object inside. Surprisingly, there was another glass case underneath. That's right, there's no way the phantom thief could have taken the item through the glass. The glass case was still intact, and the dragon's egg ruby was still lying quietly inside. The necklace he held earlier was just a fake. When the phantom thief first landed on the glass case, he covered it with a specially made another glass case, making others think that the necklace inside was gone when it was actually still there. He placed the device he found on Jim into a slot underneath the glass case. The previously sealed high-strength glass case loosened, and phantom thief quickly took it off. "This is the real dragon's egg ruby necklace." The phantom thief picked up the luxurious necklace with its eye-catching huge ruby, which was the size of a palm. It was clearly a priceless treasure. For some reason, when phantom thief held the necklace in his hand, he suddenly felt a sensation of lightness throughout his body, as if his entire being had become weightless. Calculating by the time, Robin and the others should be arriving soon. "I need to leave quickly." After securing the necklace, the phantom thief hurriedly made his way toward the exit of the exhibition hall. Whoosh! Just as he entered the corridor, a tip of fire suddenly burst out from the right side straight to the phantom thief. Chapter 64, Chapter 64, A Fiery Battle, 1. The saddest thing about betrayal is that it never comes from enemies. Unknown. The phantom thief was quick to react. As the flames were about to reach him, he quickly removed his cloak and used it as a shield to block the approaching fire. He then quickly stepped back in the opposite direction. Phew! The flames quickly consumed the white cloak. Although Phantom Thief's cloak was made of lightweight bulletproof material and offered some protection, it can also be used as a shield in an emergency to temporarily block the flames from burning on the body. But that doesn't change the fact that it can still catch fire. Not bad, you're quick to react. It makes things less boring. A deep male voice spoke from the direction of the flames. He saw a man in strange clothes and a mask walking over, holding a flamethrower in his hand and carrying a large tank of fuel strapped to his back. The man's mask covered his entire face, with large eye openings resembling insect eyes and a unique breathing apparatus around the mouth. And at the back of his suit, 2 huge black wings were placed on the shoulder blades on both sides, making his whole body look like an insect. You must be Firefly, the one who recently escaped from Blackgate prison. Penguin must have been sent you, right? The Phantom Thief calmly asked, slowly glancing at his right hand from the corner of his eye. The glove on his wrist was burned, and even a tiny surface of his skin showed signs of burns. If he had moved half a second slower just now, his entire right arm would have been on fire by now. If I remember correctly, the museum's fire system has its own power supply. Although I cut off the main power, I didn't tamper with the fire alarm power supply. The Phantom Thief looked up at the ceiling, where there happened to be a fire sprinkler. The temperature of the flames just now was too high. It is impossible not to trigger the sensor. Penguin must have done something to the fire system in advance. The purpose is to allow you to set the fire as high as possible. Firefly didn't respond, as if silently accepting what Phantom Thief had said. I wasn't interested in you before, Phantom Thief. But since you've offended someone you shouldn't have, I will make you my latest masterpiece. While I prefer burning buildings, the screams of people in flames are also a beautiful melody. Firefly said it in an intoxicated tone. Phantom Thief, if you try to use smoke bombs or hypnotic gas to escape in front of me, I suggest you give up those stupid ideas as soon as possible. My flamethrower has a range of 50 meters, and the only escape route you have in this narrow hall is the way behind you. Unfortunately, the way is at least 20 meters away from your current position. The Phantom Thief tilted his head slightly and glanced at the corridor behind him. The only thing he could walk on was the path 20 meters away, and there was no door or vent in the middle for him to hide in. The flames from Firefly's flamethrower were extremely hot, and even being within a meter of the fire flow could burn his clothes, and this corridor was only a little over 4 meters wide. This meant that Phantom Thief could only dodge left or right, and the available space to dodge was small. In fact, when he just came out of the exhibition hall and went to the corridor, Phantom Thief could have stepped back inside. But the first attack from Firefly forced him to exit deeper into the corridor, and now Firefly was standing just outside the exhibition hall. The situation is not good. This is the perfect spot for Firefly to ambush me. He is not simple-minded. He must have studied my moves. Or maybe Penguin arranged for him here. Phantom Thief thought to himself. Why haven't Robin and Batgirl shown up yet? It's not my job to deal with supervillains. I need to find a way to delay Firefly for a bit. After making up his mind, Phantom Thief put on a kind smile and said to Firefly. Hey, since Penguin promised you something, maybe we can make a deal. Before he could finish speaking, Firefly interrupted him. Don't waste your breath, Phantom Thief. You've already wasted enough of my time with your nonsense. I can't wait to witness you screaming in the flames. As he spoke, a grin appeared on the face under the Firefly's hood, and he pulled the trigger of his flamethrower, and a raging stream of fire sprayed out from the head of the gun immediately. Fortunately, the Phantom Thief was prepared and quickly dodged to avoid the flames. Tisk! Attacking before letting someone finish speaking. Sure enough, villains will always be villains. The Phantom Thief sarcastically muttered to himself as the fiery stream grazed past him. shhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhh gun and shot several playing cards at the firefly. However, the blazing heat of the flames quickly burned the playing cards and caused the high temperature to melt them in a matter of seconds. Ha 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 ha. Phantom thief, are you scared and stupid? You actually want to use playing cards to deal with fire? Firefly burst into laughter, and he slowly understood why this person dared to offend Penguin, because he was simply stupid. But suddenly, just as the flames were about to completely consume the burning playing cards, they changed course and fled the flames. These burning playing cards seemed to ignore gravity. Instead of falling, they flew straight towards the fire sprinkler on the ceiling. Looking up, the direction in which these playing cards were flying was directly towards the fire sprinkler on the ceiling. Of course, the poker cards didn't fly up on their own. Firefly watched them carefully and saw that each card was connected to a thin steel wire. The phantom thief was holding the other end of each wire. Tisk! You know we tampered with the fire system, yet you still do something so meaningless. Firefly was growing more and more confused about what Phantom Thief was thinking. Could this guy really be stupid? What he didn't notice was that at that moment, the corner of the Phantom Thief's mouth slightly lifted, revealing a faint smile. Boom! When the burning cards touched the fire sprinkler's sensor, the sprinkler blew up, showing the water pipe inside. Then, even the water pipe burst open, and a massive stream of water poured out from the gap, flooding Firefly in an instant and burning down the flames from his flamethrower. Chapter 65, Chapter 65, A Fiery Battle, 2. It's not how long you live, it's how well you live. Martin Luther King. The rushing water pouring down the pipe grew larger and larger, forcing Firefly to lower himself. It is impossible for a normal fire sprinkler system to have this high water pressure. Firefly realized that the Phantom Thief must have tampered with it. Damn it! What are Penguin's henchmen even doing? They were supposed to cut off the water supply from the fire sprinklers, but they didn't notice that the water pressure had changed. And Penguin had the nerve to tell me that everything was ready. Firefly was frustrated. 2 hours earlier, when Dean arrived at the museum for his final move, he found himself in a place filled with multiple red pipes through the ventilation ducts, which was the water valve center of the entire cultural exhibition hall. It is connected to the water tower on the roof. At that time, Dean discovered that all the water valves in that area had been manually closed, and there was no work being done that needed the valves to be closed temporarily. This shouldn't have been possible. If a fire were to break out in the museum, the fire sprinklers wouldn't work, allowing the fire to spread. It was too dangerous, and there was definitely something fishy going on. Dean didn't know that Penguin had sent Firefly to deal with him. All he was aware of was that Penguin had set out the dragon egg ruby necklace as a bait to draw him in. Therefore, at first, Dean thought that Penguin might blow up the entire exhibition hall or kill himself by setting fire to a large area. So Dean got rid of all of Penguin's henchmen and then adjusted the water pressure and the sensitivity of the fire sensors so that Penguin and others would not find out in advance that the fire system had returned to normal and go back to do it again. Only when the flames came close to the fire sprinkler sensor would the water flow start, and the increased water pressure would burst the pipes. Although Firefly was pushed back a few steps by the high water pressure, it was ridiculous to say that he couldn't move at all due to the pressure. However, he managed to stand up and walk out of the flowing water. But the time he wasted due to the cold shower allowed Phantom Thief to slip away easily. Humph! Do you think you can escape that easily, Phantom Thief? Penguin's got more people than just me after you. Looking at the dark corridor that had lost its light due to the burning fires, Firefly smirked. He shook the water off the flamethrower and adjusted the fuel proportion, then pulled the trigger. A small flame, about a foot long, shot out. Firefly had waterproofed the flamethrower so it wouldn't break down when water was poured on it. After confirming that the weapon was working properly, Firefly walked towards a corner in the corridor about 20 meters away, scanning his surroundings left, right, up, and down. Soon, Firefly reached the corner and saw a figure emitting a faint green light moving deeper into the exhibit not far away. It turns out that Firefly has installed an infrared night vision lens on the hood so that he can see the surroundings clearly, even in the dark exhibition hall. This is why he wasn't worried about the Phantom Thief using smoke bombs to hide. He could easily see through the smoke using night vision. In the eyes of Firefly, Phantom Thief's movements were clear. Shhhhhh. A fiery tongue shot out from Firefly's flamethrower, shooting toward Phantom Thief, who was about 10 meters away. The fire lit a large area in the corridor. There were 4 doors in total, 2 on each side of the separate path. One of the doors was located just 3 to 5 meters away from the Phantom Thief. The Phantom Thief, who saw the flames, immediately understood that Firefly had launched an attack. Without hesitation, he quickly took a step forward, opened the door, and went inside. In an instant, the red flames flashed by where Phantom Thief had been standing just moments ago. Quite fast, isn't he? The Phantom Thief quickly scanned the surroundings of the room. This was another exhibition hall filled with different replicated masterpieces from the Renaissance period. As for why it is so clear that they are replicas, the paintings weren't carefully framed and protected with high-strength glass. Instead, they were displayed around the entire exhibition hall on painting stands without any protective measures. There are even world-famous paintings in it, such as Leonardo da Vinci's Mona Lisa. As everyone knows, the original Mona Lisa was kept in the Louvre Museum in France, and it is impossible for it to appear here. There is no other explanation for it than replicas. Phantom Thief didn't stop moving at all and quickly placed a dummy in the first place Firefly could see when he entered the door to attract Firefly's attention. After that, he quickly hid himself behind a row of painting stands to hide. To be honest, it wasn't the best hiding spot, but there was nothing else in the exhibition hall that could be used as a better cover. Bang! With a loud noise, Firefly kicked open the door and walked in, and saw a figure not far away at a glance. A bloodthirsty curved up from under his mask as he glanced at the Phantom Thief's fake dummy before immediately looking away. Because in the image of the infrared night vision device, according to the temperature of the object, the displayed depth is different. The temperature of the dummy was far lower than that of a human body, so even if the appearance is the same, Firefly can still tell at a glance that it is not a human. Firefly looked around the exhibition hall and soon spotted the Phantom Thief's hiding spot. Whoosh! A burst of fire shot in that direction and burned dozens of paintings in an instant. Phantom Thief had sharp eyes and immediately knew that he would be exposed since Firefly ignored his dummy. He prepared himself in advance to dodge. When the Firefly fired flames towards the other side, Phantom Thief immediately rolled over to the side, staying out of the Firefly's night vision range. Although he temporarily lost sight of the Phantom Thief, Firefly remained calm and didn't deliberately search him. Phantom Thief, this exhibition hall only has one door behind me. If you hide in here, you're walking into a death trap. Firefly stood at the doorway and continuously shot flames into rows of paintings as if he were waiting for the Phantom Thief to jump out by himself. In the blink of an eye, all the paintings in the exhibition hall were burned, and the raging fire spread rapidly. Firefly continued to release flames, and the temperature inside the room rose rapidly. At this moment, Firefly found the figure of the Phantom Thief behind a painting. Chapter 66, Chapter 66, A Fiery Battle, 3. The harder the journey, the greater the story. Unknown. In the night vision display, the temperature of the figure matched the human body temperature, so it couldn't be a dummy. Firefly didn't know at the time that he had ignored something as he was wearing a protective suit. Firefly was excited to burn Phantom Thief, so he directed the flamethrower and shot a jet of flames at the figure. Then the flames quickly engulfed the figure. A burst of pain sounded immediately, and the sound was the same as Phantom Thief. Hearing this scream, Firefly suddenly showed an exciting expression, just like a musician when he listened to Mozart playing the violin himself. Scream, scream, scream even more miserably. Firefly increased the power of the flamethrower to produce more powerful flames. The room temperature rose rapidly. Ugh hoa! The phantom thief, who was on fire, fell to the floor and rolled over and over while his screams got louder and louder. Ha 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 ha! Firefly burst into laughter, feeling a sense of satisfaction throughout his body. A feeling of reaching the peak rushed up to the top of his head. Suddenly, Firefly's laughter abruptly stopped. He saw that the phantom thief's temperature, which was shown on the night vision, was rising quickly and had already gone above 50 degrees Celsius at this point. Not to mention that just being on fire wouldn't cause a person's body temperature to rise quickly. But because this extremely high temperature of 50 degrees would have killed Phantom Thief long ago, not only did he not die, he still had the strength to roll on the ground and even scream. It is absolutely impossible for normal human beings to have such strong vitality. Firefly immediately stopped the flame and looked at other areas in the exhibition hall. With just one glance, he saw multiple phantom thieves with body temperatures reaching 40 to 50 degrees Celsius. There were also phantom thieves with normal body temperatures of 36 to 37 degrees, but these phantom thieves were farther away from the big fire. In an instant, Firefly's brain buzzed, and he finally remembered something he had ignored. Under normal circumstances, a dummy's temperature is much lower than a real person's. However, if the material used was of high quality when covered in intense flames, the temperature could rise without collapsing, and it would easily reach the human body's normal temperature. The majority of dummy materials are various silicon rubber foams or comparable materials, which would collapse quickly if exposed to intense flames and, of course, would lose their human-like shape. That's why Firefly didn't think about raising the temperature of the dummies, or he also hadn't thought that Phantom Thief's dummies would be made of a material that could handle high temperatures. He had been tricked. Realizing this, Firefly's mood instantly became extremely bad, as if he had been forcibly stopped just before reaching the peak. The frustration, impatience, and anger are clearly visible on his face. Unfortunately, a full face mask kept his face completely hidden, making it difficult for others to see his expression. I've been standing near the door the whole time, so if anyone were to enter or exit, I would have definitely noticed. The Phantom Thief must still be inside the exhibition hall. There are dummies everywhere after the temperature rises in the line of his sight, and the Firefly simply doesn't need night vision. He tapped above his ear where the headpiece of the mask was, pressing the button to turn off the infrared night vision mode. Besides, all the paintings in the exhibition hall were already burned, with the flames lighting the entire space. There was no need for night vision. When Firefly turned off the night vision function, his eye mask turned into ordinary lenses. In the next moment, he saw the Phantom Thief in the corner window with his hands in his mouth, screaming at the top of his lungs. Oops! I've been found! Noticing Firefly's gaze, the Phantom Thief immediately dropped his hands and embarrassedly smiled. Seeing that Phantom Thief still had this calm attitude, Firefly felt an unknown anger burning in his chest, and his veins burst out with anger. Phantom Thief, you may be quite clever, but playing these tricks will only delay your death. You can't change the fact that I'll kill you. Once again, Firefly aimed his flamethrower at Phantom Thief, his eyes filled with infinite murderous intent. Did you not notice? Actually, you've missed something else. Just as he was about to pull the trigger, he saw Phantom Thief suddenly stretch out his hand and straighten the white top hat on his head, and he spoke calmly. It's raining heavily outside, and in Gotham, the temperature at night in early March was already very low. But now that it's raining so heavily, it's so cold that it makes people shiver. Firefly was taken aback when he heard this. And you set such a big fire here to raise the temperature in the room in a short period of time. At this moment, the temperature difference between the inside and the outside may not be less than dozens of times. Haven't you figured it out yet? Just a reminder, the museum's windows aren't made of high-strength materials, just ordinary glass. As he finished speaking, phantom thief used his other hand to knock on the window behind him. With a loud bang, the entire glass window shattered into countless pieces. Whoosh! As the glass shattered, a gust of cold wind mixed with rain blew in from the window. The phantom thief's cloak fluttered in the wind, flowing freely. Wait, a cloak? Firefly realized that he had somehow forgotten a third thing. The phantom thief had used his cloak to shield himself from the flames earlier, and the cloak should have already been burned to ashes. As a result, the phantom thief suddenly finds himself with an extra cloak behind him. Where on earth did he get all these cloaks? It couldn't be that the cape was his true form, right? Don't even think about escaping. Seeing the phantom thief about to jump out of the window, Firefly was ready to chase after him. He wasn't afraid of the phantom thief having glider wings to fly. After all, Firefly's 2 wings were not just for show. I advise you to think about how to deal with those 2 first. Before the Firefly can even react, the phantom thief's voice reaches his ears. Those 2? Firefly turned around and looked suspiciously, but there was no third person in the exhibition hall at all. Bam! Just when he was annoyed that he had been deceived by the phantom thief, the exhibition hall's door was kicked open again. 2 figures, one in red with green pants and one in black, burst in from the outside. It turns out to be Robin and Batgirl. Although they seemed to be in good shape, they had some signs of being attacked and had faint traces of blood, although that blood was likely not their own. Firefly. When Batgirl sees the person in the exhibition hall, her eyes instantly turn sharp. Meanwhile, Robin looks towards the window, where Phantom Thief is standing with one foot on the window frame. You're finally here. The Phantom Thief turned his head to face Robin. Do you think the Firefly is the only one who wants to kill you? Batgirl and I encountered at least 40 assassins on the way here. Robin retorts with annoyance. But we've taken care of those assassins. Is that so? Well, thank you for that. The Phantom Thief smiled. I'm done here. The Firefly is your problem now. After saying that, the Phantom Thief leaned backward and fell out of the window. Chapter 67, Chapter 67, Great Harvest. The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. Marcus Aurelius. Watching the white figure jump out of the window and leave, Robin didn't step forward to stop him. Because in front of him is a perverted pyromaniac who is more dangerous than the Phantom Thief. It's fine if you can't finish it. But over 40 people can't even handle these 2 brats properly. The Penguin's henchman gets more useless day by day. Firefly looked at Batgirl and Robin and thought angrily. It was so close, just a little closer, and he would have killed Phantom Thief with his hands. Why couldn't the Penguin's henchmen be able to fight back? Why did they have to let the duo in at a crucial moment? Oh well, the situation was what it was, and he had to change his plan now. Firefly had his flamethrower ready, and it would be a shame if he didn't burn anyone. The person who was responsible for Firefly's imprisonment had come forward, and now was the perfect time for revenge. I didn't plan on getting my hands dirty with you guys today, but since you ruined my good time, I might as well settle an old score with you. Firefly spoke with a fearless face and an air of strong murderous intent towards Batgirl and Robin. Although he had teamed up with Killer Moth back then, he was beaten by Batgirl alone and later arrested by Robin and Batman. Firefly isn't afraid of these 2 now. He always believed it was Killer Moth, his idiotic teammate, who held him back and caused their defeat by Batgirl. He had been stupid to team up with Killer Moth in the first place. If he had given all his strength, how could he have been defeated even by a woman? Firefly didn't know where this big confidence came from. In other words, it was the false sense of self-confidence that came from spending time in Arkham Asylum. Batgirl and Robin exchanged glances and nodded at each other. They split up and charged at Firefly without hesitation. A few minutes later, Firefly fell to the ground with bruises on his body. The other 2 also didn't come out unscathed. Robin and Batgirl's suits were filled with burn marks, and parts of their skin had been burned. Every time we deal with this guy, my hair ends up smelling burnt. Batgirl frowned as she smelled the scent coming from her beloved red hair. You haven't been in the field long enough. You'll encounter even worse situations than this in the future. Robin shrugged. He was more worn and ripped apart than Batgirl, but he had gotten used to it. He pointed at Firefly on the ground and said, "Let's take this guy back to Commissioner Gordon. The Phantom Thief's hypnotic gas usually wears off pretty quickly, so the GCPD officers who were affected will probably wake up soon." Batgirl didn't object, and they both picked up Firefly and walked out of the exhibition hall. Meanwhile, Dean had already taken off the Phantom Thief's suit and put on regular clothes outside the museum. He blended into the crowd and slowly distanced himself from the museum. After using a mini surveillance system jammer several times to counter any potential tracking attempts, he finally returned home. In order to ensure that no one could follow him, Dean purposely took a long and winding route back home. Whenever he arrived at crowded places, he would change his disguise in the middle of the crowd to avoid any suspicion. He went through all this trouble to avoid leaving any clues or evidence that would connect Dean Thurston to the Phantom Thief. After returning home, Dean immediately activated the surveillance jammer and rushed into the bedroom to destroy the dummy on the bed. Immediately afterwards, Dean did not immediately lie on the bed and turn off the jammer. Instead, he summoned the system to check the rewards of this operation. Congratulations, host, on completing the custom task, stealing the Dragon Egg Ruby necklace. Mission difficulty: normal, easy, normal, difficult, extreme, desperate, impossible. Treasure value: normal, low, average, normal, excellent, outstanding, rare, legendary, incalculable. A magician has blessed the gem, endowing it with a trace of magic that can slow down the wearer's aging process but cannot grant immortality. Elegance level: B, D, C, B, A, S, SS, SSS. Overall evaluation: B+. Keep up the good work, you have become a qualified Phantom Thief, but qualified should not be your only goal. Rewards: 2719 amazement points, from the audience in the square, GCPD Police, Jim Gordon, Robin, Batgirl, plus 1200 amazement points, reward for completing the mission. Balance: 997 points. Total amazement points: 4916 points. When the system said the number of points, Dean's eyes suddenly burst into surprise. This mission brought him nearly 4,000 points, and combined with the remaining points from his last mission, Dean now had close to 5,000 amazement points on his hands. Now he can choose from a lot of items in the system store. However, I didn't expect this necklace to be a magical item. That's a surprise. Dean thought as he recalled the system's evaluation of the Dragon's Egg Ruby as an ordinary quality gem. He couldn't help but look at it a few more times. He had to be said that the gem was indeed quite large, too big to be held with one hand. This thing was once blessed by a magician. No wonder Mrs. Chandler aged several decades after removing this necklace. And it also explains why the Chandler family has been hiding it and refusing all public exhibition proposals. It is said that the Chandler family got this necklace 100 years ago. I didn't expect them to have connections with magicians back then. I wonder if the Chandler family is still in contact with that magician. They probably no longer have any contact by now. Otherwise, Penguin wouldn't have been able to threaten Mrs. Chandler. Dean pondered in his mind. Forget it, the past events of these big families have nothing to do with me. There is only one thing to do now. Name: Dean Thurston. Age: 16. Skills: proficiency in magic, proficiency in vehicles, proficiency in lock picking, proficiency in shooting, proficiency in hand-to-hand combat, quick disguise, voice alteration without props. Items: card gun, grappling gun, triangular glide, bulletproof cloak, high-speed self-filling dummy, homemade smoke grenade, homemade flashbang, homemade tear gas, homemade hypnotic gas, mini surveillance system jammer. Talent, resistant skin, low level. Balance, 4,916 points. Dean summoned his personal panel and then clicked to enter the system store. At this moment, he didn't hesitate much and directly selected a good price range and chose one item. This exchange was something he had planned in advance, but it's just that he didn't have enough amazement points to save it until now. Intermediate talent, superhuman reflexes, greatly enhances the body's reaction speed for a short period. The longer the duration, the higher the stamina consumption. The improvement depends on the physical condition at the time. The limit can make people barely keep up with the speed of sound. Note, users have greatly increased reaction speed, which lets them dodge multiple bullets, catch flies in mid-air, dodge and run around complex attacks, catch falling objects, block disadvantages and react at the same time to high-speed bullets like sniper bullets, as well as react to a being with superhuman speed. Chapter 68, Chapter 68, The Reason. When God became lonely he created man, or was it when man became lonely he created God? Melanie Exler. The talent of superhuman reflexes seems to be very strong at first glance. The human body's reflexes close to the speed of sound are simply abnormal. In this world, with this level of reflexes, it would be easy to dodge bullets. But its flaws are also huge, even bigger because, in its introduction, there is a description of the longer the duration, the higher the stamina consumption. If someone thinks about it for a moment, they'll realize that getting a reaction speed much faster than what the human body can do takes a huge amount of energy that is hard to imagine. I'm afraid that even if they squeeze a person dry, they may not be able to last more than 2 or 3 seconds. There was a huge difference between reaction speed and movement speed. While both could reach the speed of sound, the first one only made it possible to react quickly to the outside world. But that doesn't mean they can physically move at the speed of sound. On the other hand, being able to move at the speed of sound is a different story. Looking at it this way, the talent of superhuman reflexes seems not very useful. Moreover, the talent's price of 2,000 points would definitely not be worth it. After all, the cost of 2,000 points would have been unimaginable for Dean before today. Even now, this talent would cost him nearly half of his points. It is not a cheap choice in any way. However, after going through a series of thoughts, Dean firmly decides to buy this talent. There is a reason for it. The talent of superhuman reflexes is currently the only way for Dean to possibly match or come close to superheroes and supervillains in the future. Dean knew very well that now is the world of superpowers, and news of new superpowers being discovered is reported almost every day around the world, even though most people are not very powerful. Even in Gotham City, which has the fewest superpowered individuals, there are still beings like Killer Croc, Solomon Grundy, Poison Ivy, and Clayface. What's more, it's impossible for Dean to stay in Gotham for the rest of his life. In the future, when facing those powerful beings, if he can't even react to the movements of those powerful beings in the future, what's the difference between that and walking into a trap? Without superpowers, if Firefly hadn't been there alone and Penguin had sent more than 40 assassins, Dean wouldn't have been able to do anything about the rain of bullets from 40 guns. At that time, he wouldn't be able to escape, no matter how hard he tried. This group of people is not as well controlled by Jim Gordon from the GCPD. They aren't afraid to kill people publicly. The crowd strategies that Dean usually depends on are useless against them. Luckily, Firefly, for some unknown reason, insisted on listening to the famous thief, Phantom Thief, cry out as he burned in the fire. He didn't let Penguin's henchmen interfere. Otherwise, it would definitely not be so easy for Dean to get out. Maybe some people would think that Batman is also a powerless individual, but can't he easily defeat gods and demons? Dean hasn't read many comic books about this, so he isn't sure if Batman is truly invincible. If he only believes it from his perspective as a local, Batman is indeed powerful, but he's not invincible, not even in Gotham. Moreover, there have been multiple public actions by the Justice League. There hasn't been a single one in which Batman was the main fighter. Inside the Justice League, he is more like a commander or strategist. Even if Batman can actually react to the movements of those super-fast individuals or even single-handedly defeat the Justice League, it's probably because it's needed for his protagonist's aura and the plot armor. Dean knows his own abilities. Currently, his reaction speed of 0.15 seconds is pretty fast. There are very few normal human beings in the world who can compare to him. Even so, Dean still needs to be entirely focused in order to have a chance to dodge a pistol bullet, and that's only one bullet. Dean knows he's not the protagonist. He doesn't have any plot armor within him. If he doesn't improve his reaction abilities in the future, he'll probably be killed without knowing when the other person made their move. In fact, the system store did have items that were much better than the talent of superhuman reflexes. But most items that achieve similar effects are either too expensive or simply not as useful as this talent. For example, the bullet time from the wanted he didn't want, as there was a limit to moving at the speed of sound, while the superhuman reflexes was limitless. Dean doesn't have to risk his life in exchange for a few seconds of reaction speed close to the speed of sound. He just needs to be a little faster than others to react. This way, Dean can perform even more advanced magic tricks than before. In short, Dean believes that superhuman reflexes is currently the most suitable item for him. After completing the exchange, Dean prepared to get some good rest. He got into the same position on the bed as the dummy before. Dean was about to turn off the jammer when he suddenly noticed that the burn mark Firefly left on his right wrist had healed over a halfway. While the burn was not painful to begin with, the main attribute of its healing is likely his first talent. That is resistant skin, low level. In any case, Dean's main goal in using the system is to focus on his survival. He wanted to be able to react quickly to explosive attacks that could wipe out a city, or react quickly enough to avoid super-fast attacks. Whether it's an item or a talent, as long as the effect is the same, it's good enough. As for other matters, Dean hasn't thought about them for now, and he's not capable of thinking about them anyway. Meanwhile, Gotham City's Diamond District. Iceberg Casino. Ignatius sat in the office, the light in his eyes was faint, and he didn't know what he was thinking about. At this time, a sneaky man opened the door and walked in. "Have you taken care of Lark and William?" Ignatius calmly asked, but the words he spoke were shocking. After the Pink Fantasy incident, William and Lark were arrested by the GCPD for allegedly leading an underground money laundering chain and are currently under investigation. Even though there isn't enough evidence to guarantee a successful prosecution, the GCPD's investigation has gotten deeper, and they have found many strong pieces of evidence. William and Lark's imprisonment is only a matter of time. However, the police investigation can only go as far as William and Lark and not reach Penguin. These clues were purposely leaked out by Penguin to protect himself. In fact, this should be the end of the entire situation. William and Lark were longtime veterans of Penguin's gang and knew what to say and what not to say. Penguin had no intention of taking them out. But based on what Ignatius said, he seems to want to kill William and Lark, the two Penguin veterans. Chapter 69, Chapter 69, The Death of Veterans. It does not matter how slowly you go as long as you do not stop. Confucius. In the Iceberg Casino, Ignatius and his subordinates were having secret conversations in the office. They are discussing something about hurting their workers. "Boss, don't worry, that idiot Lark and the fat pig William are now in hell, meeting Satan." One of the henchmen says this with a sinister smile. "Did you leave any traces?" Ignatius calmly asks while sitting in his chair. "Don't worry, I guarantee there's nothing." The henchman patted himself on the chest and made a serious promise. "I bribed the prison guards and provided the inmates with the murder weapons to take care of them. Afterward, I got rid of everyone who knew about it. I used fake identities throughout the whole process, so no one knows my true identity, let alone trace it back to you." What about the surveillance footage? Ignatius asks abruptly. When I bribed the guards, I had them secretly damage some cameras. The maintenance crew won't go to the prison until tomorrow morning. Lark and William have made enemies during their years in the gang. They've brought enough enemies from Gotham to the seaside. There is no shortage of capable people who could have killed them. No one will suspect us. After hearing his henchman's report, Ignatius nodded in satisfaction. Then he spoke seriously. Well done, but we still need to be cautious. That old penguin is cunning, and it won't be easy to deceive him. Boss, there's something I don't quite understand. Why do we have to get rid of those two guys? The henchman suddenly looked puzzled and asked. Lark and William may have ruined our money laundering business, but they've been loyal to Penguin for many years. Penguin might still care about them for personal reasons. If these two suddenly and mysteriously die, he might start investigating, which could lead to us. They will definitely be imprisoned for their crimes. At least 10 to 8 years. They won't be a threat to us. If you still fear Penguin, why take this risk? You're mistaken about two things. Ignatius raised two fingers and sneered. The first reason is that the Penguin is a cold-blooded monster who doesn't really care about the lives of his subordinates. When Lark and William die in prison, he will only pretend to be angry and vow to avenge them, but he actually just wants to maintain his reputation in Gotham. It doesn't matter who killed those people / what matters is the Penguin's public image. Ignatius lowered one finger and continued speaking. The second reason is that even though they're in prison, those two people still pose a huge threat to me. Lark was in charge of managing the Iceberg Casino, while William handled money laundering and shipping. These businesses make huge profits, and they have made enemies, but they have also formed alliances with people who have others for their mutual benefit. There is always a possibility that they could be released on parole. They were both loyal subordinates of Penguin. If they were to be released, everything I planned and schemed for would be meaningless. Actually, there is one more reason that Ignatius didn't mention. It is that he wants to use the deaths of these two older members of the Penguin gang to make Penguin believe that the other gangs in Gotham are becoming unstable. To secure his own position, Penguin will definitely start a violent war. If Ignatius performs very well during the war, he will get more respect and trust from Penguin, which will increase his influence. Ignatius's power right now is too weak, he can only build it up by attaching himself to the Penguin first. After finishing his explanation, Ignatius's henchman nodded as if he understood and liked his plan. The boss's plan is indeed good. At first, you had me release the news about the pink fantasy being a fake diamond to attract those who were suspicious. Once the money laundering was discovered, Lark and William would definitely be caught. At this time, you turned Penguin's attention to Phantom Thief and took the opportunity to get rid of them completely. The henchman continued complimenting Ignatius, saying, "You killed two loyal Penguin gang members almost easily and gained control of the Iceberg Casino that Lark used to handle. This way, you not only remove your competition but also strengthen yourself. In this way, the desire to replace Penguin has greatly increased." Humph! Ignatius snorted lightly and said, "Phantom Thief unexpectedly joined the game, which was not part of my plan. But his appearance actually helped me a lot. If he hadn't targeted the pink fantasy, I would have been worried about how to secretly reveal the money laundering information to the GCPD. The fact that Phantom Thief suddenly issued a notice letter saved me a lot of trouble. This means that the goddess of luck favors you, boss." Listening to the flattery of his subordinate, Ignatius smiled with satisfaction and promised, "If there ever comes a day when I control this city, you will be my greatest ally." As soon as he finished speaking, Ignatius quickly raised the gun he had already been holding and shot his henchman in the forehead without any hesitation. Both of their faces still had that smile. Ignatius slowly put away his smile and coldly glanced at the corpse of his henchman. He pressed a black call button on his desk. Soon, several people wearing black uniforms came in carrying strange tools. After seeing the corpse on the ground, they immediately started to put it into a body bag and clean up the bloodstains on the floor. After the cleanup was finished, they quickly left the room. No one asked any questions or found anything strange about the situation. It seemed like seeing dead bodies happened all the time. These people were the cleaners from the Iceberg Casino, responsible for disposing of bodies. Penguin was obsessed with maintaining his reputation and strictly banned cheating in his casino. However, there were always a few who didn't listen, and when they were caught, they needed to be killed to set an example. The cleaners hired by Penguin were top experts in the field and understood that the more they knew, the faster they died, so they never asked for any information. In fact, when Lark was in charge of the casino, she killed many more people than Ignatius. After the cleaners left, Ignatius walked to the window and gazed at the night sky, his eyes deep and mysterious, as if he were thinking of another scheme. Chapter 70, Promoted. Knowing what it feels to be in pain is exactly why we try to be kind to others. Jiraiya Sensei, Naruto. The day after the Phantom Thief stole the Dragon's Egg ruby necklace. The news spread throughout Gotham early in the morning. Unlike before, Phantom Thief is now a celebrity in Gotham, and his notice letter has gotten a lot of attention from the media. There are dozens of big and small newspapers that have sent their reporters and photographers to take different close-up shots of Phantom Thief and used them in their front-page headlines. Luckily, Phantom Thief first showed up in the big square of the Natural History Museum, which gave photographers a lot of opportunities to take nice shots. Every media outlet has its desired front-page news and has also come up with attention-grabbing headlines in different styles. Shocking! Batgirl was publicly played by Phantom Thief. Dragon's Egg ruby necklace was stolen right after its public exhibition, and the Chandler family suffers heavy losses. Winning again and again. Who can stop the Phantom Thief? Magic or sorcery? The miraculous performance of making rainwater flow back. Under the storm of a row of new Phantom Thief news, the news that escape convict Firefly Garfield Lynn was defeated by Batgirl and Robin and returned to prison seemed small. However, even if it's a small issue, there will always be someone paying attention to it. Bang! In the Iceberg Lounge, Penguin slammed a newspaper on the table with a frown on his face. This useless Firefly! He swore he could take down Phantom Thief alone, but he ended up being played like a child. Ignatius and several other Penguin's henchmen stood silently in a row below, keeping their heads down and saying nothing. It's not just Firefly who's useless. Robin and Batgirl are all useless too. When they dealt with us, one person could take down dozens of our men. But they let Phantom Thief escape several times. Enigma, he's also useless. He can't even solve Phantom Thief's notice letter, and he still has the nerve to call himself Riddler. Useless, useless, all of them are useless. Penguin cursed angrily, even Riddler, who was in Arkham Asylum, couldn't avoid it. At this moment, he turned his head to look at his henchmen below and shouted, "What are you all doing standing there in silence? Speak up!" The henchmen looked at each other in confusion, and then they all turned to face Ignatius and signaled for him to speak. It seems like among them, only Ignatius's words are effective. With no other choice, Ignatius had no choice but to stand up and say, "Please, boss, calm down. Even though the plan to kill Phantom Thief failed this time, we still gained something." "I don't see what I gained." Penguin said it coldly. Ignatius's face showed a hint of hesitation, but then he seemed to make a decision and spoke seriously. "This incident made us realize a fact, that we were completely wrong about Phantom Thief. We underestimated him too much. Phantom Thief is a very talented thief. I believe that Catwoman is the only one who can outsmart him, and even she might not be able to beat him. If we don't face this seriously, we will only be humiliated by him again and again." Hearing this, Penguin's face changed. Although Ignatius' words were more sensitive, how could someone as cunning as Penguin not understand the meaning behind his words? Ignatius was telling Penguin that he had made a big mistake by underestimating Phantom Thief. The others unconsciously distanced themselves from Ignatius. They were used to Penguin blaming others. How could anyone blame him? Even if Penguin really had a problem with himself, he had to find it himself. Usually, that would be fine, but now the Penguin was already angry. Ignatius seemed to be looking for trouble when he was saying this. Just when everyone thought Ignatius was going to make the boss angry, Penguin suddenly changed his expression. He looked at Ignatius seriously and asked, "The assassination trap failed this time, and Phantom Thief has become our mortal enemy. Do you have any good plans?" After thinking for a while, Ignatius said, "We have already challenged Phantom Thief once with bait, and he accepted the challenge. If we use bait again, the whole gang in Gotham will think we can't handle the situation. So we need to come up with a different plan." He whispered a few words to the Penguin, who suddenly brightened up, and all his anger vanished. "The plan you mentioned is very good, and I knew promoting you was one of the best decisions I ever made." Penguin happily patted Ignatius' shoulder and praised, "Not at all, it's all because the boss taught me well. You are too valuable to be tied to the casino. I thought about it all night yesterday, and it's better to keep you by my side." At that moment, the Penguin unexpectedly said, "Your position as an advisor is a bit low. Ignatius, from now on, you'll be my secretary." Ignatius was taken aback. Did the old Penguin want to take back control over the Iceberg Casino? Why? Did he figure out my intentions? With countless thoughts in his mind, Ignatius' face remained calm and unchanged. When the Penguin wanted to give him the position of secretary, Ignatius agreed, saying, "It's an honor for me to be able to work by your side, boss. Oh, by the way, did you know that Lark and William were stabbed to death in prison yesterday?" Penguin asked as if he suddenly remembered something, his expression calm and casual, as if casually mentioning something during a conversation. However, Ignatius's heart was racing. "I know. According to the GCPD, there was a fight between the prisoners, which led to their deaths. Do you believe that?" Penguin asked with a mysterious smile. "Just last night, the two prisoners with the weapon mysteriously died from food poisoning, and the prison guards on patrol also mysteriously disappeared. Even the surveillance cameras in the prisons were purposely damaged, and those who did it were the only ones with access to the crime scene, which was very easy. How could a prisoner have weapons? It's possible that someone bribed the guard to let them in to kill Lark and William. Then, after both of them were killed, they also killed both the guard and the prisoner and even damaged the surveillance cameras. They did a clean job. This person must be an expert." Penguin looked at Ignatius with a meaningful look and said, "I heard you killed someone in the casino yesterday." Ignatius' heartbeat accelerated instantly. Penguin slowly opened a drawer and took out a photograph. As he handed it over, he said, "Before the prisoner killed Lark and William, someone saw a person bribing the guards around the prison. It seems this person looks a lot like the person you killed in the casino." Chapter 71, Chapter 71, He or She. Love is the most twisted curse of all. Gojo Satoru, JJK. Can you explain to me, Ignatius? Penguin spoke with his usual tone, gently and slowly taking out a photo. Under his gaze, Ignatius showed a hint of surprise on his face, but there was no sign of panic or hiding. It wasn't until Penguin showed the photo to Ignatius that he carefully looked at the person in the picture and shook his head. "Boss, I'm sure I haven't seen this person before in my memory." Indeed, the photo Penguin showed was not of the henchman Ignatius had killed. "That damn old Penguin almost made me think there was a mistake, but it turns out he was trying to trick me." Ignatius cursed silently in his mind, grateful that his mental composure was good enough to suppress any emotion of suspicion. Otherwise, Penguin could have easily fooled him right now. He could even guess that he wasn't the only one asking this question. It was likely that every person in the room had been tested by Penguin. "Really? Isn't he the one you killed at the casino?" Penguin pretended to be surprised and asked. "Their bodies may look a bit similar, but their faces are quite different. It must be a case of getting the wrong person. Ignatius replied without hesitation, I killed that person at the casino because he was cheating in a blackjack game. According to the rules, I couldn't let him live. Ignatius had a good story ready in case he decided to kill and silence someone at the iceberg casino. He had arranged for his henchmen to play blackjack and pretend to cheat before entering the casino. The reason for this was that Ignatius's henchman was not an insider from the Penguins gang but someone Ignatius himself recruited. There were many similar people hidden in different corners of Gotham, each of them having direct contact only with Ignatius. Naturally, an outsider wouldn't have the chance to randomly encounter a casino manager unless there was a specific reason, such as cheating. Of course, it couldn't be an actual cheating incident because it was against the strict rules of the iceberg casino. Regardless of who it was, cheating meant death. As long as Ignatius's henchmen made a few hidden and weird actions captured on the surveillance footage, making others think he was cheating, it would be natural for Ignatius to talk with him without arousing suspicion. In the end, the misunderstanding would be cleared up, and Ignatius would let him go, so he wouldn't be violating Penguin's rules. Unfortunately, it was all just Ignatius's lies. He had never intended to let his henchmen leave alive. If Penguin asked about the murder at the casino, Ignatius had a perfect excuse ready. The records from yesterday are still in the casino, including footage of him cheating. Ignatius told Penguin. Ah. I see. So, it must be a case of the wrong identity, as you say. Penguin pondered for a moment and then nodded, as if he believed what Ignatius had said. I am satisfied with your plan to deal with the phantom thief. You will be in charge of running it. I have other matters to attend to and no time to deal with a mere thief. As Penguin spoke, his gaze turned cold. Lark and William have been with me for over a decade, and now they've been cruelly killed without any clear reason. If I don't show any response, I'm afraid the whole Gotham will be in chaos. He looked at the other henchmen in the room and spoke in a chilling tone, gather all of Gotham Mafia families. We are going to have a long overdue gathering. Meanwhile, at the entrance of Chandler Manor, a group of reporters gathered to interview the old-looking Mrs. Chandler. Camera flashes were going off continuously. Mrs. Chandler covered her eyes with her hand and remained calm, even though she looked old and had a lot of wrinkles. Mrs. Chandler, the infamous phantom thief, has stolen the Chandler family heirloom. You seem quite calm. Don't you have any resentment towards phantom thief? Asked a young female reporter with long black hair. There are rumors that after stealing treasures, the phantom thief returns them to their rightful owners after some time. If phantom thief hasn't changed his ways, then the dragon's egg ruby necklace should also be returned, the reporter continued. Mrs. Chandler smiled softly and replied, since the necklace will eventually return to me, why should I hold any grudge against phantom thief? Only one person truly deserves to be resented. Mrs. Chandler thought, filled with anger. You truly have a generous heart. It's no wonder you are currently leading the Chandler family. The reporter said it admiringly. She continued by asking, Mrs. Chandler, the Chandler and Cobblepot families have collaborated to organize an exhibition in which the dragon's egg ruby necklace is on display for the first time. Oswald Cobblepot, the only heir of the Cobblepot family, is the head of Gotham's largest criminal organization with multiple criminal records. Why did you decide to collaborate with someone with such a notorious reputation? The reporter asked. Some have suspected that there may be some ulterior motive or even use of force by Cobblepot for the exhibition. Can you confirm if this is true? She added. Mrs. Chandler's expression changed, and she quickly responded, no comment. All right, one last question. What can you see from the sky? When the female reporter asked, Mrs. Chandler didn't understand the meaning of the question. She slowly lifted her head, and her pupils shrank at the view of something in the sky. Suddenly, a strange white balloon appeared in the sky, slowly falling towards the ground with a box-like object hanging beneath it. On the balloon, there was a famous cartoon image of the phantom thief. Mrs. Chandler instantly had a thought and quickly looked down at the female reporter who had just asked her a question. But in that split second, the reporter disappeared without a trace. When asked about her, none of the other reporters or photographers recognized her or noticed her leaving. Mrs. Chandler at first tried to find the reporter in the crowd below, but she soon gave up on the idea. If the phantom thief was so easy to find, he wouldn't still be active without being caught. However, thinking back to the young female reporter in her professional clothes, with an attractive figure, a good face, and a lovely voice, Mrs. Chandler couldn't help but ponder deeply. Is phantom thief really a he and not a she? After a while, the balloon fell to a height that Mrs. Chandler could reach with her hand. She took the box attached to the bottom of the balloon and opened it. Sure enough, inside was the dragon's egg ruby necklace. Chapter 72, Chapter 72, School Dance Party. I'll leave tomorrow's problems to tomorrow's me. Saitama, One Punch Man. No matter the hidden scheme inside Penguin's gang or the gossip about the phantom thief in Gotham City, it doesn't affect Dean's normal life. After returning the necklace to Mrs. Chandler, Dean impatiently went to a hidden place to change his clothes. After all, it was too uncomfortable to keep stepping on high heels all the time. He couldn't get used to wearing high heels, but they were unavoidable when he was disguised as a woman. It's worth mentioning that when Dean returned home today after school, he discovered that the surveillance cameras had been removed. Batgirl is very quick, and she takes back the camera without thinking about watching it for a few more days. Dean thought that Batgirl would want to take a break, even though she was busy at the Natural History Museum last night dealing with assassins and trying to catch Firefly. But she took the cameras back in broad daylight. Overall, it's a good thing for Dean. When he knew that he was being watched before, even when there were ways to avoid surveillance, he still felt uneasy. Now that he is no longer being monitored, he feels more relieved. In the training room, Dean rubbed his chin and thought carefully. I do need some rest. Tomorrow is the school dance before spring break. I can have some fun by performing a few magic tricks for them. In this country, schools have not only summer and winter breaks but also spring breaks. The spring break at Gotham Academy starts on March 13 and lasts for 10 days until March 22. On March 12, which is the last day before spring break, according to Gotham Academy's tradition, they have no classes but instead a school dance. Students can set their own performances, whether on stage or in private. The whole dance is accessible. Students can play however they want, and there is no need to watch the stage performances or celebrate. If the performance is good, there will be cheers; if it's not, there will be boos. It is even allowed to gather a dozen people to play a game of truth or dare on the lawn. Dean had participated in the school dance for several years, and the atmosphere was indeed quite lively. The students usually have a lot of fun. But for some reason, every time Dean participates in such an event, he always feels a sense of emptiness deep in his heart. Sometimes, he even finds the students laughing at bitter or dirty jokes to be childish. But that carefree happiness is really something to want. The moment he became good friends with Dick was actually at Gotham Academy's dance during their first year. It was because Dick also had a similar feeling of loneliness deep inside. It's normal to think about it. After all, Dick had recently become Robin, and every day he was either receiving training from Batman or patrolling Gotham to fight crime. He basically didn't have much personal time. Although Alfred was very unhappy about this, at the time, Dick was just obedient and always listening to Batman. He was pretty lonely at school because he didn't talk to many people and always hid his emotions. If you think this is a story about two lonely people meeting and getting to know each other, you're wrong. Dean and Dick never even pay attention to each other's feelings. The real reason these two became friends was because of Leah, the girl in their class that Dick had a crush on. At the ball, Leah invited Dean, who was still a genius magician at the time, to dance, but he declined, using the excuse that he had to perform magic everywhere. Dean swore that it wasn't because he was busy practicing magic and didn't have much time to practice dancing. Leah felt disappointed by the rejection, and then Dick took the opportunity to invite her to dance, and they ended up together that night. Dean didn't understand why two high school freshmen developed a relationship so quickly, and he didn't want to think about it either. Anyway, Dick found Dean and was grateful to him for giving him the opportunity to pursue Leah. Dick was also puzzled why Dean would reject Leah and so many other girls, and he asked him with some doubt if he had girls' problems. The first two questions weren't a big deal, but when Dick asked the third question, Dean got angry, and they almost got into a fight. After that, the two of them got to know each other. They would sometimes talk, and the more they talked, the more they felt that the other person was much more mature than children the same age. They slowly became friends. In the end, they even ended up sitting together in class. Putting an end to the boring memories, Dean turned around and went into his study. He turned on his computer to gather the latest news. It seems like Gotham hasn't had many exhibitions of valuable treasures lately. I even heard that there was supposed to be a Hope Diamond exhibition in April, but it got cancelled. I wonder if it's because of my recent crimes. Dean pondered as he stared at the screen. What should be the next target? Which museum should I take their valuable treasure to? It doesn't feel very interesting to play this game all the time. By the way, Penguin set a trap with the dragon's egg ruby necklace this time, trying to lure me in, but it failed. Will he use other treasures for a new trap next time? Or maybe I should think about what parts to put in the next notice letter. On March 12th, during the Gotham Academy dance, thousands of students were having a great time dancing with others on the field. The center of the field had a stage where exciting music was playing. When students got tired from dancing, they would rest on the grass, play board games, or have picnics with others. There are even some who set up tents, though no one knows what they're up to. Pay attention, ladies, my hands are empty. At that moment, Dick was doing magic tricks on the grass in front of 4 beautiful girls. He showed the girls his empty hands so they could see that he didn't have anything in his hands. Then he started his magic trick. His right hand quickly flickered, and instantly a card appeared. He repeated the flicker, and another card appeared until he had 4 cards displayed from empty hands. Pretty impressive, right? Dick asked with pride, and his magic was perfect, as Dean had taught him and helped him improve. Richard, performing magic tricks with empty hands has been done countless times on TV. It's not exciting at all. The girls are disappointed. No matter how good the magic tricks were, they were too common to be enjoyed. Don't worry, it's not done yet. Dick smirked. Look at these 4 cards, and I'm going to use both hands to bring them together. Dick wrapped his hands tightly around the 4 cards and covered them all with his hands. After a brief pause, Dick suddenly opened his hands, but instead of revealing the 4 playing cards, they vanished without a trace and transformed into a single red rose. This one is for you, beautiful lady. Dick hands the rose to the first girl on his left. She immediately showed a surprised expression. Hey! Why only her? What about us? The other girls protested. Don't forget, there are 4 playing cards. Dick waved his hand, and the other 3 girls were surprised by his words. He closed his hands again, and when he opened them, there was another red rose in his hand. This one is for you, lovely lady. Dick hands the rose to the second girl on his left. He repeated the process, making 4 roses, one for each girl. Chapter 73, Chapter 73, The Magic of Dean Thurston. If you can't handle your own pain, then how can you think of giving others pain? Unknown. Where did you hide the flowers, Richard? 4 girls asked curiously as they accepted the red roses. Well, I'm sorry I can't tell you because it's a magician's secret. Dick spread his hands and winked. Clap, clap, clap. Clapping came from the side. You've improved nicely, you've made great progress in such a short time. A young man with black hair, blue eyes, attractive looks, and a slim figure walked over wearing a black tuxedo and a black top hat on his head. A typical magician's outfit. I can't believe it. Is that Dean Thurston? As soon as they saw this young man, the girls around Dick immediately brightened up and approached him to introduce themselves. Hi. Dean, I'm Lysina. I'm Lucy. Emma. Mia. Hello, everyone, I'm Dean Thurston. Dean smiled and nodded at them and thought to himself, I haven't seen any of them before. Are they girls from another class, or are they sophomore students? No, they look so young, they must be freshmen. By the way, where did Dick meet so many girls? Dean, we are all your fans. We used to watch your magic shows on TV, and it was such a pity when you left the stage. Can you give us an autograph? The girls looked at Dean with expectant eyes. I can, but I don't have a pen on me right now. Let's do it next time we meet. We're all at the same school, so we'll have plenty of chances to see each other. As soon as he heard the word autograph, Dean smoothly responded, his face unchanged and his voice clear. He had probably said it many times before. Hey, Dean, it's my turn to perform now. You came and stole all my girls away. On the other side, Dick was staring at Dean with a dissatisfied expression. Well, that just means you haven't sharpened your skills enough. At Dean's words, he suddenly came up with a fun idea, and a slight smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. Magicians compete fiercely with each other, you know. If you can't keep your audience, it's only a matter of time before you're forgotten. He asked Lucy beside him, Can I borrow the flower in your hand? Of course I'd be happy to. Lucy nodded repeatedly and handed him the red rose. Dean took the flower, holding the rose with both hands, one hand on the petals and the other on the branch. What color do you like? Dean asked. Yellow. Lucy replied without hesitation. Okay, yellow, very nice. I like that color too. Dean said, and as he spoke, his hands quickly came together as if crushing the flower in his palms. Oh! Dean's actions startled the girls. Dean smiled, his left hand formed a fist while his right hand slowly moved away. A yellow silk cloth slowly appeared from the gap in Dean's left fist, and the red rose had disappeared from his hands. As Dean continued pulling, the silk cloth became longer and longer, reaching about 1 meter in length. He then gently pinched the two corners of the silk cloth and spread it open. How did such a long cloth fit in his hand? And where did the rose go? Seeing this scene, 4 girls covered their mouths. Even though they knew that magic was just a trick, they still couldn't help but be amazed when they saw it with their own eyes. Because no matter how they imagined it, they couldn't understand how it was done. Even if they understood, they couldn't see any flaws. Dick, who was standing next to Dean, found Dean's performance intriguing. He easily guessed the principle behind the magic, as it was a basic skill for magicians to turn one thing into another. However, even Dick couldn't see when Dean made his move. The biggest challenge was how did Dean know that Lucy liked yellow? Or rather, how did Dean manipulate Lucy to choose yellow? If Dean had prepared a silk cloth for each color, how did he hide all those cloths? Therefore, there are some secrets that people really can't see. This has little to do with eyesight or mind. At that moment, Dick had a sudden idea. Perhaps in the future, I can ask Dean for help in revealing Phantom Thief's magic tricks, but I can't reveal Robin's identity. It might not be right to directly ask for his help. How about asking Barbara instead? Do you all like pigeons? Dean asked calmly to 4 female students. You don't seem to like them, but that's all right. After today, you will come to love pigeons. Dean took off his top hat and turned it upside down, and Lucy held it in her hands. As you can see, this is a very normal hat. There are no tools inside. With an excited heart, Lucy carefully observed the hat and, indeed, couldn't see any signs of gimmicks. Next, Dean covered the hat with a newly appearing yellow silk cloth. "Ms. Lucy, hold the hat well and don't let it fall to the ground," Dean reminded her with a smile, and Lucy nodded heavily. "Now, I'm going to cast a magical spell on this hat." Dean closed his eyes, and he mysteriously spoke with his hands hovering over the silk-covered hat. Seeing his serious expression, the girls couldn't help but swallow and become nervous. After muttering a few incantations that he himself couldn't understand, Dean suddenly opened his eyes and immediately lifted the silk cloth from the hat. Lucy suddenly felt the hat in her hands start to tremble slightly. "Cuckoo, cuckoo, cuckoo." A row of cooing sounds came from inside the hat, and then one by one, small, cute, white doves flew out of the hat. Dean reached out his hands, and as if following instruction, the doves landed on his hand to the shocked and admiring gazes of the girls. On the nearby lawn, other students heard the sound of the doves and noticed what Dean was doing. "Guys! Look over there, isn't that Dean Thurston? Is he performing magic for those girls?" "What? Dean Thurston? I can't miss this." To actually have Dean personally perform magic for them, what do those girls have that I don't? I want him to perform magic especially for me too. More and more students began gathering in that area. Chapter 74, Chapter 74, Calculator. When it comes to people you really love, you don't care about yourself. Kurosawa Yamato, say I love you. As the number of people heading towards Dean's side grew, the noise grew louder. Students from other places were also interested and surprised to learn that the magician was Dean Thurston, one of the most famous students on campus. This has never happened before. Even though they were students from the same school as Dean, they couldn't easily watch his magic tricks. After all, Dean is popular among young people, and there are a lot of people who want to see his great performances. This could wear Dean down in the long run. And for the past 2 years, Dean has been trying to keep a low profile, slowly fading from people's sight. Dean only used his magic when there was a big school event, like today. At first, most students thought Dean would perform on the big stage on the lawn, but they were surprised to see him performing street magic outside the venue. There was nothing more to say, so they hurriedly ran over. If they were late, they would definitely not be able to squeeze into the front row and miss the best view. That would be a huge loss. Even many students who were dancing in the area or watching the performance on the stage quickly left their original spots and went to see Dean's magic show. The majority of them were girls. So many students left that the audience below the stage suddenly decreased by half, leaving Patrick, who was singing and dancing on stage, confused. "You're beautiful, it's true." Hearing the instrumental playing on the speakers, Patrick suddenly lost his confidence to continue singing. Meanwhile, the audience around Dean suddenly multiplied by tens or even hundreds, with Dean at the center. Lucy and the other girls had never experienced being surrounded by so many people before, and their faces showed a mix of nervousness and excitement. Dean, on the other hand, was calm and unaffected by what was happening. But for some reason, Dick, who had been standing next to them, was nowhere to be found. It was unclear whether he had left on his own or had vanished into the crowd. Lucy still had pigeons flying out of the hat she held, but the gap between the two pigeons flying out had noticeably increased. It seemed that in a while, there would be no more pigeons flying out. A flock of pigeons flew onto Dean's hands, appearing endless until his arms and shoulders were completely covered with pigeons. Is this even possible? Lucy couldn't believe her eyes when she saw the pigeons on Dean's arms and the fact that there wasn't a single feather in the top hat she was holding. How could so many pigeons fit in such a small space? She had checked the hat before, and there was nothing inside, and Dean hadn't even touched the hat since Lucy took it from him. As unbelievable as it sounds, she truly felt like those pigeons appeared out of thin air. Could this really be magic? Lucy's eyes filled with endless wonder as her heart raced. No one in the room was more shocked than her because she was holding the top hat of dozens of pigeons that flew out of the sky, and she was the one who saw what had just happened and everything up close. Especially because she was sure it wasn't a trick. Lucy couldn't think of any other explanation for Dean's magic except magic itself. It's incredible, isn't it? Dean opened his outstretched hands and smiled at Lucy. The reason you find it hard to believe what you see is because you are looking too closely. Dean quickly threw his open hands downward as he spoke, startling the flock of pigeons on his arms. The pigeons flew everywhere and covered Dean's body in the process. When the pigeons finally scattered, Dean disappeared from the scene. Lucy was shocked and turned her head to look for Dean. The closer you look, the less you'll see. Just then, Dean's voice echoed from behind Lucy. Turning around, Dean somehow appeared behind her. "Thank you for your cooperation, Ms. Lucy. Did you enjoy my performance just now?" Dean respectfully bowed and lightly kissed the back of Lucy's right hand before straightening up. "Oh, by the way, Ms. Lucy, I haven't returned what I borrowed from you earlier." As if remembering something, Dean reached out his hands, snapped his fingers, and then reached for something behind Lucy's ear. A fresh red rose suddenly appeared in Dean's hand. "Ah! This rose is still here." Lucy put her hands over her mouth and looked around in surprise. The magic trick just now was so good that she couldn't even pay attention to anything else. If Dean hadn't mentioned it, she might have completely forgotten about the rose. After returning the rose to Lucy, Dean returned to the center and looked around at the countless students who had gathered. "My dear fellow students, you only saw the final part of the magic performance earlier, which isn't fair to all of you. But I also know that you all gathered here to watch the magic show, so I decided to perform the magic that was originally prepared for the big stage right here for everyone to see." Dean raised his voice a bit to make sure the people in the back could also hear it. When everyone heard what Dean said, they started cheering. "That's great! Dean, you're the second best magician in the world. Although it's a bit disrespectful to say this, the best is Phantom Thief. Don't praise me too much, there are many other magicians in the world who are better than me. I also hope you get to see more amazing magician performances." Dean waved his hand casually. "Now, let's focus our attention on the next magic trick, and remember, don't blink your eyes." Meanwhile, in the East End, Gotham. This is the most common and chaotic area of Gotham City's underworld, where every person living here has blood on their hands. Kidnappings, extortion, disappearances, robberies. As soon as someone enters the East End from any street corner, they are bound to see at least one type of crime at first glance. However, when Ignatius stepped into the Eastern District alone, no one dared approach him and even took the initiative to look away when they saw him. Everyone knows that Ignatius is Penguin's most valuable subordinate. If someone is brave enough to touch him, it's like slapping Penguin in the face. Ignatius walked into an alley, at the end of which was a small house that was barely 10 square meters in size. The lock on the door was horrible. It didn't have a keyhole or a combination, so there was no way to open it from the outside. There wasn't even a doorbell. Fortunately, Ignatius seemed to have anticipated this situation and calmly knocked on the door and asked, "Is anyone there? I'm looking for the calculator." Chapter 75, Chapter 75, Stone of Misfortune. When a man learns to love, he must bear the risk of hatred. Madara Uchiha, Naruto. Soon, a man's voice could be heard from behind the door. "Who told you about this place?" Ignatius squinted his eyes and replied, "My boss is Oswald Cobblepot." "Oh? Penguin sent you? Why didn't he come himself?" The man inside the room continued to ask. "He's busy right now and doesn't have time to come personally." "How do I know if what you're telling the truth?" "I don't know you unless you can prove your identity." Facing the man's doubt, Ignatius remained calm and pulled an ordinary-looking Rubik's Cube out of his pocket. He then said, "My boss told me to give this to the person in the house. Can you see it behind the door?" There was no peephole on the door and no visible gaps, and there were no surveillance cameras around the house. Ignatius was highly unsure if the man inside could actually see the Rubik's Cube in his hand. In addition, he wasn't sure if the Rubik's Cube Penguin gave him was actually useful because it appeared to be a regular Rubik's Cube that one could buy from any toy store. There wasn't even a special symbol on it. It didn't seem right to use something like this as proof of identity. But Ignatius had no other choice because that's what Penguin had said. "You brought the Rubik's Cube, that's good. Now you can come inside, Penguin's boy." Who knew that the man inside the room could actually see the Rubik's Cube in Ignatius' hand and even spoke to let him in? A dimly lit room was revealed when the door in front of him opened on its own. The room was very small, only 10 square meters, and Ignatius could see everything at a glance. There was only a table and no other furniture inside, not even a bed or a chair. On the table were 7 or 8 monitors connected to devices that looked like servers. It's worth mentioning that Ignatius didn't see the man who was speaking just now. Ignatius walked into the room cautiously, and the door closed automatically. Sizzle sizzle. At this moment, the center monitor on the table suddenly lit up, and a man with glasses appeared on the screen. "Are you the calculator?" Ignatius looked at the screen and asked. "I heard that you built the world's largest supervillain information network, especially providing information or services to supervillains. Just like superheroes have the Justice League, supervillains have quietly formed a similar secret society. However, the structure of the secret society is much worse than that of the Justice League, which is well organized and often works together. It's hard to figure out who is in charge of the secret society of supervillains. There are strong candidates such as Lex Luthor from Metropolis, the Joker from Gotham, the Demon's head of the League of Assassins, the 50,000-year-old Vandal Savage, and the Black Adam from Kandak. It's hard to say who is the strongest. But when it comes to the real center of the secret society, the one that connects almost all supervillains, there is only one person. Noah Cutler, known as the Calculator. He is one of the top hacking experts on Earth and has established a secret and vast information network worldwide. Normally, supervillains prefer to stay in their own cities to commit crimes, but there are times when they need help or rare items. But they are supervillains, and if they sneak into other cities, they will most likely be rejected by the local supervillains. So who on earth would help them? The Calculator says, "I will." When the time is right, supervillains can use the Calculator's information network to trade secretly with other supervillains or buy information or items directly from the Calculator. Even in terms of price, it's not too expensive. If the information is wrong, they can get their money back in full. The main idea is fairness and mutual support. Well, it seems like I am indeed in this business. So why did Penguin send you here? He can't possibly just want to meet me, right? Calculator smiled, and his voice was the same as the voice that came from the room earlier. It seems like he is communicating with someone far from another location, maybe not even in Gotham. That's why the token is just an ordinary Rubik's Cube, because once he realizes that it's someone else coming in, he can disconnect the contact anytime. No, this server probably has a self-destruction program to completely avoid reverse tracking. Ignatius thought to himself. He asked, "Mr. Calculator, our boss needs something, an item that brings misfortune, a deadly curse, and the appearance of a special gem. Why would the Penguin want such an evil thing?" "Oh, I see." The Calculator was initially puzzled by Ignatius's request but quickly seemed to understand the reason behind it. However, he didn't reveal what he understood. "Let me think. Not long ago, Felix Faust found a deep blue stone from some ancient temple. He called it the Stone of Misfortune, saying it had immense evil power and could bring deadly disasters to the person who owned it. Felix Faust was a very famous ancient sorcerer among supervillains and had strong powers. Felix said the stone was useless to him, so he decided to sell it. But I guess he might be worried about getting cursed himself, ha ha ha." The Calculator laughed heartily. "So how can I get this so-called Stone of Misfortune? A dark magician probably doesn't need dollars, right? Ignatius asked in confusion. This happens all the time, but it's fine. I've collected a lot of strange things over the years, and among them is something that Felix needs right now. Just give me enough money, and I'll give it to you. Calculator explained. Middleman. After listening to the calculator's explanation, the term middleman popped into Ignatius' mind. How much? Ignatius asked. It's not expensive. As a favor to the penguin, I'll give you a 30% discount. Just $15 million will be enough. This price for a real stone of misfortune is not expensive, and it can even be considered quite cheap. After all, even a diamond with nothing but a larger size can be sold for $100 million. For gemstones like this, which genuinely possess magical powers, they are basically priceless and cannot be bought no matter how much money you have. Ignatius didn't hesitate for too long and agreed to the deal on the spot. After all, he didn't have to pay for it himself. A mere $15 million would be just a drop in the bucket for Penguin's assets.